The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Live tonight from the Daytona International Speedway, LSRTV happy to say good evening sim racing fans and welcome to our continuing coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series Season 15 Championship at LSRTV, your home for sim racing and iRacing Live, as we welcome you back under the lights tonight from Daytona Beach, Florida, following our first off week of this Season 15 campaign. We are back for round number 7, crossing over to the halfway point of this regular season on Friday nights. And as always, we're happy that you're spending your evening here with us on iRacing Live. Tonight, as always, myself, Evan Pasoko, going to be accompanied by Cisco Scaramuza. He's downstairs twitching and tweaking at aisles. He's also got a headset on him tonight as Rachel Whiteford is off for the evening and Austin Coop is stranded somewhere on the side of the road. Cisco, happy to bring things back into this. We enter our 7th points race of the season, but even if we want to count the duels, even if we want to count the shootout, we have had 9 checkered flags fly this season and 9 different winners. Question is, right off the bat is, well, is that going to continue tonight?
Well, we're just going to have to see, Evan, and also you have to keep in mind, we'll talk about points here very shortly, that not all of those 9 guys are in contention for the playoffs at this point, because you have to maintain a decent spot in those normal point standings if you hope to actually have a shot to make it into the playoffs. But we take a look at the playoff grid right now. Chris Bassini, Brandon Cruz-Montevise, Brandon Chaburko, and Jimmy Coleman. Those are your guys who have won this season. Jason Altmans and Seth DeMerchant, they have wins, but they're outside the top 25. So while they're technically out of the playoffs right now, if they start showing back up and are able to make their way back up the points order, they're in this thing.
And DeMerchant is going to be on track here tonight. However, Altmans is not. So we will have to keep an eye on those drivers, obviously, as this race goes on. And for Altmans, it's going to have to wait until another week for him to get an opportunity to make up some of those point positions. Right now, the drivers enter into their qualifying session as they all have 1 lap to put it up to the top of the board. The best driver in the practice session was Brandon Cruz-Montevise as a win earlier this season at the Talladega Superspeedway. His 45.3 was the best time at practice. Nobody's going to be able to match that, though, because that was out there in a pack during practice. But we should expect to see, I would expect at least, your familiar faces up towards the front of the field in the qualifying session. And we came off of the week, I guess the last race, which was 2 weeks ago, had last week off with no action inbound, but the guys come back this week for, I believe, what is a straight run through all the way until our next off week is the 24th of November. So it is quite a push now off to the playoffs. But the race 2 weeks ago was one of our crown jewel events with the Superspeedway Cup Series, and it was the Stars Fell on Alabama 250. That race was back to the old school, straight up lap format. We head back into our regular season format tonight based on time, 100-minute timed race with the first stage paying out bonus points at the completion of lap number 50. We have had only 1 driver to win multiple stages so far this season. That's Harry Tiller. He's won the opening stage in each of the last 2 races. So that's something else to keep an eye on tonight, maybe with the driver of the 69 machine.
No, absolutely, Evan, and he's been a contender all year, kind of a foil, well, not really a foil, a clone of how Brandon Chaburko drives. He just hasn't had the luck that he's been looking for. I'd also argue that Chaburko really hasn't had the luck that he's wanted either, because both those guys, they've run up front, but other circumstances have come into play where they haven't been able to capitalize on it, Evan. So I have to wonder, for a couple of those guys we're not quite in worry mode, and especially for Brandon Chaburko, he's locked in, so he's not in worry mode at all, but it's that gap. We talk about those playoffs points all the time. Chris Piscini's been running well all season. Brandon Montsevice, here and there, but decently. Piscini can open up a very big gap with those playoff points if he continues to do very well. Chaburko, he needs to finish a couple more of these. I think he needs to win at least one more before I would be kind of happy where I am in the chase.
And all these different winners, I think, is not only good for us because we get to see a very competitive series with having, like I said, so far to this point, 9 different races total on the year, 9 different winners, but 6 out of 6 on our points paid races, which make up the names on the chase grid, the playoff grid that you just took a look at. But as well, that means that we're going to have a larger playoff grid. It actually will expand based on the amount of drivers who have a win. And this is something that the series has done for quite some time. There would be, at minimum, 12 drivers to make the playoffs, which means if we saw 8 drivers go on, or rather 7, I guess, total 7 different race winners, 5 would get in on points. But that doesn't mean if we go all the way through the final race of the regular season, which is round number 13, that we would have 13 different winners, somebody would make the cut. There will be at minimum 5 drivers in on points. So we could see if this trend would to continue and we see a different driver win all 13 races of the regular season, 18 drivers would have an opportunity to go into the opening round of the playoffs. So there's always going to be an incentive, regardless of who's locked in, for drivers to get good points paying results.
Yeah, it is. And also talk about the fact, Evan, here, we have a pretty sizable field tonight, 37 cars taking to the track. Not quite a full field, but fairly close. And that means we're going to have some new guys in here, a couple returning faces. We'll go through that once we get to the starting grid, but some new drivers, and we are getting right ahead over there, but a lot of new drivers in the series, Evan. These guys, it's all about who you run with and how comfortable you are with those new drivers. That comfort's gone.
And it is a big field tonight. The drivers just now echoing your thoughts in the driver meeting. A couple of drivers chatting things over before they head down trackside and get this state underway. But qualifying has rounded to a close. So let's go down trackside and take a look at your LSRTV starting grid tonight for race number 7 on this season. Tonight's Drive for Autism Pole Award going to go to the 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr. Fan favorite has the LSRTV colors on aboard his Chevrolet SS tonight, his 48616. Going to qualify him on pole position, just 2 1/1000ths of a second off. Rodney Wofford qualifies P2. Paul Servant, another solid effort for the driver, the number 3. He'll start from 3rd tonight. And Seth the Merchant, as noted, a driver who is parked at a victory lane this season. Last time we were here at Daytona, although it was on circuit 07, he will start in 4th. That's going to give him an opportunity to make up points, get back inside of the top 30 in the overall championship standings. And then just behind them, Ray Rittenauer with the 2nd in the 87 will roll from 5th.
Yeah, 6th is going to go to Scott Warren in that 76 machine. 7th going to go to Rod Flagg in the number 10 Valvoline. 8th going to go to Harry Tiller in the 69. 9th going to go to Frank Basilia III, making his return to the series once again in the McDiggin number 94. And Victor Bartlett rounds out your top 10.
And something interesting to note about those top 10, and 9 out of the top 10 qualifiers were outside of the top 16 in the times on the practice charts. That changes when you look back to Brandon Cruz Montsevice. He was the best in practice earlier tonight. He'll roll from 11th position tonight, accompanied by Justin Levine on the outside of road number 6. Andrew Berger, no time to practice earlier. He gets the unlucky number 13 starting position, 4-time series champion. Will roll off in that spot. Gary Champion to his outside in 14th, and Ramon Evans is 15th.
16th going to go to Richard Reagan, the junior, in that 46th. Jimmy Coleman's going to roll off 17th. 18th going to go to Kevin Spencer. 19th going to go to Spencer Preet. 20th to Daniel Holloway. 21st to Mike Schultz. 22nd, Sean McCarrick. 23rd, Travis Brown. 24th, James Pileski, another returning face here to the Superspeedway Cup Series. Chris Patton rounds out your top 25.
And at the final time to take a time at a queue tonight, Tommy Hall will roll from 26th position. The rest of these spots are going to be in based on provisional. Casey Malone, 27th. Brandon Chaburko in 28th. Dana Osborne, 29th. And Glenn Hedrick in 30th.
31st going to go to Logan McAnally. Dwayne Cooper going to start 32nd, 33rd to Chris Bassini. Filip Radojic is going to start 34th, 35th going to go to Mike Thiel, and Gabe Allen and Daniel Harrington will round out this field as well. Evan, let's talk a little bit about this Daytona International Speedway.
Racetrack located in Daytona Beach, Florida. It's been around for nearly 58 years now. It is a staple on the NASCAR calendar, and of course makes up a little bit more, actually, if you consider the fact that we run the 07 circuit as well. A little bit more than half of this calendar. You got 3 stories of nearly 31 degrees of banking. Tri-oval itself could be a quarter, but it doesn't count on the actual track map. That counts this place as a 4-turn racetrack, but that's 18 degrees in and of itself. This racetrack substantially thinner than the Talladega Superspeedway. The start-finish line is in the middle of the tri-oval. Those are the biggest things to note whenever we hop back and forth in between these tracks. We're under the lights. It makes things that much more exciting, and we're happy that you're with us tonight on LSRTV, your home for sim racing and to iRacing Live. The pace car going to drop down and in and field in the hands of Mark Jorgensen Jr. American Ethanol Green Flag flies, and we're off as we start the 100-minute clock.
Time already starting to tick away here, Evan. 1 hour, 40 minutes here to go for this race. Of course, stage at lap number 50. We'll keep track of you, or keep track for you guys. When you look at the top rating, it'll flash up every time we hit 10 laps or so. So we'll see 40, 30, 20, and then 10 to go. But right now, Mark Jorgensen leads that bottom line in the iRacing Live Chevrolet SS. And note to the outside, Rodney Wofford's got help. The Mellow Yellow boys are at it up on the top side. Seth the Merchant and Rodney Wofford making it work up there.
And they started up on the outside, nose to tail, and unlike most people would do up on the outside of the racetrack, they're going to hold that outside positioning, not make a rush to the bottom of the racetrack, not going to lead the first 2.5 miles. That goes to your pole sitter, the 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr., but I think the 7 and the 57 with a respectable effort, keeping things honest up on the top side of the racetrack. You definitely do see the separation, though. Excluding those two, there's only 3 other drivers on the outside, inside of the top 20. Everybody else has dove down to the inside of the racetrack, and it's helping the guys out who maybe were starting in this race 6th and 8th position. They've gone to the bottom, but the 7 and the 57 aren't affected all that much. 2 cars, I think, is enough to stay where they are. I don't think 2 cars is going to be able to get them to the race lead. They're going to need some help. Look for the 3 to go to the outside. It's exactly what he's going to do, as Servant going to make a play for the race lead.
Yeah, Paul Sermon in that Oreo Chevrolet jumping to the top side. He's going to try and get the push there for Rodney Wofford in that first Mellow Yellow Chevrolet. Also, Scott Warren coming into the picture up on the top side. And this is Ford Fusion. Those guys making it work up there as they come out of turn 2 here. You can note a little bit of a difference between DeMerchant. DeMerchant's got that muted green on the bottom and 6-man on the deck lid versus Rodney Wofford, who has a more bright green and an AC Delco sponsorship on the deck. So that's kind of the easy way to tell. Of course, keep an eye on those numbers as well. That kind of helps a little bit as well.
So the 3 is going to be able to use that outside lane as a ways to a means, and he's going to be able to get to the race lead. He brings the 7 to Watford with him, and Servant leads at lap number 3. The 7 machine wasn't able to bring the 57 to Merchant with him, so he will drop back in line, 5th in line on the inside of the racetrack. That will leave Scott Warren as the lead car up top side. You can see that 1 car just doesn't get the job done. And he's going to fall back to the 94 of Frank Basilia III, who is back with us this Friday evening, past series champion, working with the 76 machine. Had an opportunity to go to the bottom of the racetrack. Don't think he's going to go for it. They will stay on the outside of the racetrack, but that leaves nobody up top inside of the top 8 or so, so really no threat up front. Single file with the 3 and the 7 now leading that charge.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys coming to complete lap number 4 already. Clean and green for the moment. Very single file look to this race so far. Actually, it's going to split a little bit. Seth the Merchant looking a little bit towards the outside to see maybe if he can get a little bit of a draft. Not going to happen, though. And they've kept it very single file right now. We're looking back at first side by side. Oh, and actually, no, the 16's going to get turned. I don't know how I caught that. Oh, he's going to get punted by the 93. First caution on the night. It's Mike Schultz.
At a camp out of nowhere, we were talking about how calm things were, and it was just a little bit of miscommunication, I think, courtesy of the 01 and the 16. Schultz was really high up of a double yellow line, and I don't know if Brown was either trying to go to his inside or just stay on the bumper, but he kind of traced him up a little bit, got him in the left rear, and Schultz got tagged, spun sideways in the center of the corner, did a good job almost keeping it off of the fence. There was nowhere, though, for James Pileski's 93 to go, who gets into him, and then the outside wall and a pretty big hit to bring out the yellow.
Yeah, Schultz, a massive hit. And Pileski somehow, that was just a nasty wreck. We'll get a look on board the 93, but not the return James Pileski wanted to have in this series. And Mike Schultz, we talked about that, the fact that some of these guys, maybe not a lot of experience running with these guys. Well, I think the 01 of Travis Brown and the 16 of Mike Schultz, maybe just like you said, a miscommunication, Evan. Obviously, they didn't want to tear up any sheet metal this early, and I think that's what happened. They just aren't used to running together yet.
And I think it was just a little bit of a miscommunication, right? I think Travis Brown was trying to do everything that he was supposed to when you're in line behind somebody. You obviously want to help him out. And the 76 obviously moved up the track a little bit, and Brown wanted to go with him. That's kind of a tough situation where I think the only thing you can do is roll out of the gas, because if you stay on the yellow line, you're going to end up inside of his quarter panel. He'll try to come back down to keep you on the bumper, and he'll spit off of your nose. Instead, the 01 tried to follow the 16 up, but you're kind of chasing him up the hill. You're basically pushing on the left side of that back bumper, and it just does not work in the corner at 198 miles an hour. And something else we have to keep in mind, it may tie into that incident a little bit, but I think in the grander scale of things, it may tie into the kind of racing we've seen so far, is we're on a brand new iRacing build. First race of the competition since that came out earlier this week. Drivers have obviously been on the racetrack, tested that out, trying to figure out if anything is different in these Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series cars and at this Daytona International Speedway with the draft package, but it is going to be a learning experience not having an opportunity to practice with 40 cars almost on a racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely, and the biggest change that we know of coming into this build, Evan, is the fact that the dynamic track model has been renovated, and it's going to be a lot more prevalent for these guys, and it's going to make those lines start to get a little bit slicker for them out there. That's going to be a concern considering this is a super speedway series. These guys really like to run the bottom, and that bottom's just going to get slicker and slicker and slicker and more heated up as this race goes on. That is the potential to start making that outside line a little more tempting to go up there, because you might be able to have a little more control under your car, which that's something we really haven't been able to say at Daytona for a very long time outside of Daytona Circa 07. So a very interesting situation these guys are in. The track has already taken rubber from practice and from the qualifying session, so just something to note, Evan. That's the biggest change that these guys are probably facing here tonight.
And I think that even in a general circumstance, without the fact that that's going to be something that these guys are going to have to adapt to at Daytona, the track tends to take a little bit more rubber than Talladega, and it's under the lights. So you do have that little bit more grip. The track temps aren't as high as it would be if the South Florida sun was beaten down on this racetrack. It's only 78 degrees outside in this sim, and it's 78 degrees down trackside as well. So I think a combination of both of those factors means that the racetrack is going to have a lot of bite in it tonight. Really didn't see any aggressive dives high or low, but we have seen many a time late in these races in this Superspeedway Cup Series, drivers trying to fake high, go low, and maybe that little bit of extra grip could help them out down the line. One thing to note is at least most of the drivers up front not coming down to take fresh rubber on under that early caution flag. Again, a very small fuel cell under these season 15 guidelines, only 55%, that can get you anywhere from 21 to 23 laps of green flag racing. And as you see the clock at the top of your screen continue to wind itself down, we're pacing at lap number 8 of 50 in stage number 1. I think the concept behind this is maybe a yellow or two could stretch these drivers into being able to make it to the end of the stage on one stop. It would be quite a gamble to do so. I don't think the drivers who pitted now are going to be able to make it to the end. Obviously, they still have another trip down to the pit lane, so that may be the call from a couple of drivers up front, but I think it was a pretty even split when pit lane opened a couple laps back.
Oh, absolutely. We saw Rod Flagg and most notably Seth DeMerchant. Those two came down pit road to make sure they topped off, got some tires. Looks like Seth kind of got the shaft of that because he's way back in the pack right now. You find him back in 29th. So DeMerchant, not what he wanted off of pit road. I will say Rod Flag, he's up to 17th, so something happened. I think maybe Seth took 4 tires. Rod may have taken gas only, but either way, DeMerchant way back in the pack. Maybe he had to deal with something outside of the car itself, but either way, that kind of split those guys up, and the guy who was running and kind of leading the way up on that top side, helping push Rodney Wofford, is all the way back in the field now.
Keeping an eye out, front lights are now just going out on top of the iRacing.com official pace car, so we are going to restart with 9 laps complete, 41 laps to go in stage number 1, just as it is in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, points paying out to the top 10 positions only at the end of the stage. First position going to get 10 points, second going to get 9, so on and so forth. The drivers who are trying to be able to make it on one stop from this point on, though, topping off on a pit road, Brandon Chaburko in and out, Piscini, Basilia, DeMerchant, Flag, a champion, Holloway, Cooper, a lot of drivers, and not just names that tend to hang out towards the middle of the back of the pack. Some big hitters back there as well agreed with the call.
And it looks like we're having a coasting party going down the back straightaway. They're all spread out up there. Paul Servant in front of the pace car shutting the motor off. You can tell fuel mileage is in the minds of these guys tonight, Evan. That means it's going to be very tense for them and on that racetrack because they're going to be looking where they're going. In addition to keep looking back at that fuel calculation, they need to know, what is that number I have to hit, Evan, or do I even have a shot to make it on one stop?
And once you get going, you're going to have an opportunity to look at your estimated laps left and how much gas you have in a car. Anybody who's raced at iRacing knows that that's an option we have on this side of things that you don't have if you were driving in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series back in the pack as opposed to leading the line. You can save a little bit more gas, but again, you can go about 23 laps max on a fuel. One stop would get you to lap 46, but those topping off after 9 should be able to get to the end of stage number 1 with one more trip down to the pit lane. The guys up front, the strategy remains unknown. Green flag going to fly once more as Paul Servant gets us back underway. He traced Jorgensen to the green flag last time. Now they flip-flop as the 88 pushes him to turn 1.
Absolutely, these guys on lap number 10. Once they complete this lap, Evan, 40 to go before the yellow flag flies for the end of the stage. And Mark Jorgensen Jr. right now looking to the outside. He's going to get a big push from Rodney Wofford in that number 7. And it's going to be enough to push the iRacing Live Chevrolet S up to the front of this field by a huge margin. And he's got about half a car length on the rest of this field. Going to drop to the inside this time. Mark Jorgensen Jr. at the point here at Daytona International Speedway.
And when a guy behind you makes a move like that, there's almost nothing that you can do. Now Servant's going to try to do it back to him, but the timing was not as good. The 88 did it right as they were winding up coming off of the corner, so he jumped high just with enough time for the 7 to push him off of the corner, and there was no drafting help for Servant on the inside of the racetrack. Servant tried to do the same that time by, came up a little bit shy at the line, and as they go 2x2 right now for the race lead, didn't quite time it as perfectly, and wasn't able to simply just blast on by the 88. That 54 of Brandon Cruz Monsivice was able to slide on through into that second spot on the inside of the racetrack, but down to Daytona Super Stretch, Servant with a push, maybe 6 inches too short of being able to clear him, and will stay door to door.
Yeah, side by side caution gonna fly though here. Back at Daytona, looks like issues possibly.
Basilia, the 94.
Basilia, 93, big accident. The 93, the 83, Ramon Evans, and Dwayne Cooper in the 00. Big time damage to all 3 of those cars. Let's take a look at what exactly happened. And it looks like, not really sure what happened to Dwayne Cooper, but either way, might have started with Basilia himself.
Yeah, McCarrick at a 52 and a 94 of Basilia will get that second look up. They go side by side into 3, and I think the 52 is just a little bit too high up on that double yellow line, and Obviously, the 94 machine being clear of the 52 by half a car length. Can't see him coming up the hill. Kind of in a blind spot there. And McCarrick pushes up a little bit. He's fine at all of this. But it got Basilia out of shape. And a 94 spun into the outside wall. And there was nowhere for Evans to go, who just plowed into him on the top side of the racetrack. And then they slid down. And it was just bad news bears for the double over to Wayne Cooper, who decided that, okay, they're up in the fence. I'm going to go low to get around them. They then slid down the hill right in front of him, and the 94 ended up on his side in all of that.
Yeah, that was not good. We're going to ride on board with Ramon Evans and watch the 52. He just floats up the track a little bit, and that's all it takes, right into the 94. We talked about that bottom line getting rubbered in, Evan, and that was a very odd move from the 52. Not sure if he lost handle of the wheel for a moment or what happened, but either way, 94 hard into the outside, and he actually nearly got blown over once the 00 hit the 83. It was like pool balls hitting each other right there, the transfer of the kinetic energy. But either way, somehow the 94 stayed on its tires, so he was able to get that car back to pit road. But once again, the pit strategy continues. More drivers on pit road as we cycle back to the pit road camp.
Yeah, a couple of drivers down to pit road. The likes of Rittenauer, looked like maybe the 24 of Berger was coming down as well. But I like the call to stay out, because for the drivers who pitted on the first yellow, and again, more so than not, the drivers pitting now did not pit the first time. Those were the drivers up front. But hear me out on this. I like Paul Servin. He was coming down to the pit lane this time and dove back out at the last second. He's trying to get, I think, on this run, and it's a gamble. You know, staying out early, if it's a gamble as opposed to the top it off. He's trying to make this on one stop in theory. If not, and he wasn't trying to take a pit stop out of this thing, no reason for him not to pit now. But again, because of the fuel, you have to save somewhere 4 laps of gas. I think 2 yellows can do that, and that's what he's done now. He stayed out both times. The 42s also stayed out. Mons Weiss, Justin Levine, a couple of other names up here as well. The guys who just pitted now didn't pit the first time. Bunch of drivers did. Those drivers who we saw top off Cisco, I don't expect a lot of them to have come down and pit this time. So now the guys who stayed out the first time, pitted this time, are at the back, and they're going to be behind drivers who could make it onto one stop. Now, they could make it on one stop too, because we've done 13 laps now. But their weighted one kind of throws them back into a strategy. That could be the conservative call, but Paul Servett and the guys who stay out a second time are trying to either hope to get the caution at the right time and pit rate at about lap number 26, 27 as we work on 13 now, or simply just pit by themselves. The number's going to be different, but I think those drivers are now in a window where they could do it on one stop. You're never going to make stage 1 on one stop under green flag conditions, but I think 2 yellows could get them to lap 26 or 27, which might just make the window. We'll have to see.
Yes, but Evan, you just proceeded saying all of that with the word might. So if I'm one of these drivers, I like the idea of Brandon Cruz Mons Weiss, and this goes with the whole strategy. I talked to him at the beginning of this season. His whole strategy this whole year is stay up front. It doesn't matter about strategy, anything like else. He just wants to be up front as much as possible to stay out of the wake of any sort of accidents or anything like that. That's what he's done. Paul Servin also on that strategy as well, with Victor Bartlett, Justin Levine, and even Harry Tiller. Throw him into that mix as well. So mixed thinking, different schools of thought, Evan, but either way, I still like the call from the 54. Stay up front as much as you can, because even if you're, saving fuel to make it to the end of the stage, Evan, you could get taken out in an accident. We saw it happen to Frank Basilio. We saw Chris Bassini get caught up in the aftermath of the first accident. I don't want to be in the back when these things happen, Evan. I want to be up front, so I got a clear track in front of me.
The worst case scenario for the likes of Servant and Mons Weiss is that you somehow don't save enough, and the caution laps and the cycles appear to be 1 lap extra. They kind of on and off depending on what kind of night you catch the sim on, it appears, but it's almost 50-50 split on you being able to save fuel under a lap of yellow. So a lap of caution, it only uses about 50% of fuel that you use on a green flag lap. So if we're doing 4 or 5 laps per yellow cycle, you save it about 2 to 2.5 of green flag. You do 2 caution to flag cycles, you save about 5 laps. You can extend your first run to lap 28. You can make it to lap 50. But the worst case scenario is not us going green, them pitting by themselves, then everybody else pitted on their separate number, and if everybody can make it on one stop, them just not leading when it comes to it. That's not bad. But the worst case scenario would be if your math is off by a lap or two, because you would hate to pit and then have to come back down pit road at lap 48 or 49. That is what these drivers absolutely want to avoid. They must have faith in the guys pushing the numbers, though, that they'd be able to make it with one pit stop. The guys up front, again, have yet to pit so far tonight.
So what that's going to do is this is going to be your top 10 coming to the green flag, Evan. Servant, Monsivice, Levine, Bartlett, Tiller, Warren, Preet, Coleman, Hall, and Reagan Jr. And something to note here, Evan, keep in mind the 78 of Jimmy Coleman. It was a little bit of a fuel strategy win, but he was the last winner here, and we'll get to that orange banner above his driver window once we take the green flag once again. But you want to talk about momentum in this series. We've seen it time and time again go against guys like Mark Jorgensen Jr., against guys like Jason Altmans. Coleman just came off a win here, Evan. That's a very, very good motivator to help keep you up front and keep you racing. Coleman's had he's had a week off. He's back in the car, and he's our defending winner in this series from 2 weeks ago at Talladega.
And it was a fuel strategy win as well.
Exactly. And this is becoming a fuel strategy race, so keep an eye on that 78.
And again, once stage number 1 is complete, we'll still have the better part of about 40 to 45 minutes to make up for any downfalls, but those points could be critical come again 5 positions points pain into the playoffs. Second yellow going to fall behind us as we go back green flag racing from Daytona. 15 laps now complete on the road to lap number 50 and the end of stage number 1. Second consecutive restart. The Oreo Chevrolet of Paul Servant brings us up to the gears to turn 1.
Yeah, the master of the qualifying here in the Superspeedway Cup Series, once again leading this field. Victor Bartlett in the Hooters Chevy doing a great job, and there's the 69 of Harry Tiller, one of the two probably most unpredictable drivers in this series with him and Brandon Chaburko. But the 69 very aggressive, but also very good at what he does. Look for that 69 to maybe try and make it 3 wide and sneak a position away from Victor Bartlett. Right now, though, Monsivice tried to make it work on the outside. He's going to fall back into the clutches of the 14 of Levine. He's going to need a little bit of help from that Mobil 1 Ford Fusion in order to make a run on that top side. Scott Warren, meanwhile, third car in line on the outside yet again.
And 2 cars is going to be able to keep him up there. You have to watch. Caution, though. Problems behind your race leaders once again to turn 1. A lot of smoke. A couple of cars in this one. The 18 of Gary Champion is wrong way in the Haviland Chevrolet, but I don't think it started with him. I think it started with Frank Basilia maybe again.
Yeah, and Basilia having a terrible night. Also saw the 56. It looks like they actually started with the 16. And I'm going to have to take a second look at that because that's not the first time we've seen the 16 in an accident. Survey says, okay, that was an odd angle, so we'll look at it again. But it looked like almost the 16 came up the track or the 94 came down. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know if the 94 was just trying to get a little bit tighter on the 16 to get around them. They both had very bad restarts. If you get a wide angle of it, there's a lot of 2x2 tight down to turn 1, and then these guys are about the 3rd or 4th cars in line that really struggled off for the restart. So I think Basilia, having been in an accident, might have been a little bit impatient with that one, and maybe he was just trying to get to the inside of the 76. 76 was quicker, thought he'd clear him, and I believe the 94 just tried to split a gap, Cisco, between the 16 machine. It looks like a 1 or a 7. You never know, but the 16 tried to split between he and the 26, and I think he pulled the trigger on that dive low a little bit early, clipped him, and then there was a secondary pack that got lost at all of the smoke. I couldn't identify who was in this accident. Took me 6 or 7 seconds to figure it out because there was so much smoke, and I think that kind of blocked or screened that second pack coming in. They didn't see those cars in front of them, and a couple more guys went into that accident.
Yeah, and we're riding on board with the 56 of Gabe Allen right now. And you see, we talk about the smoke and also a newer addition to iRacing. It's been about a year now. But you see the 56, he gets on the brakes there, but Gary Champion, nowhere to go for him. He shoots the outside, but you see that huge plume of smoke. Can't see the car that side swipes the 56 into the wall. He goes, and a couple more cars caught up in this. A nasty accident coming off that green flag.
The pit road opens once more, and the drivers who are committed on the stay-out strategy stay out once more. It would really be a stretch for maybe somebody to come down, top off at 1 to go here and try to make it to the end of the segment on fuel. You'd be looking at about 28 laps. You'd have to get at least 2 or 3 cautions to stretch it. Not sure if anybody is going to decide to top off at when to go. We'll know it about 3 laps from now. But at least for the guys up front, Servant committed to this strategy. Another 4 or 5 laps under caution. Going to give him an extra 2 or 3 laps of gas in the tank. He will now, I think, almost pretty clearly be able to make it to the end of this segment with only 1 pit stop. He just needs other drivers on the same strategy to do so, because for about the 12 or 13 cars that we saw top off right at around lap number 9 or so, they're going to be able to get in there no problem. 9 and then 13, those guys are going to be good, but they're not going to be pitting for fuel until lap 33, 34. So if the 3 can stretch it, he might be able to get to 30 maybe, Cisco, with the amount of gas that he's got, maybe a little bit under that, but you can't think pit much more than lap 28 or you're not going to be able to hit the number. If he can, he needs drivers to pit with him. If he gets 4 or 5, that's great. They can go to the end. They will be pitting at a separate time as everybody else, but they are just as suited on fuel to make it to the end. I think 3 yellows basically locks it up. If there was any hope of making it on 2, then you have to be confident with 3.
Oh, absolutely, Evan. So this is going to put in a scenario where the strategy's starting to pay off. The question is, for these guys, do they try and roll the dice and stay out even more times to try and not even have to come down pit road, which I think is almost nigh on impossible. But if you're in a point now where you need to start picking up playoff points and we're getting to the point where it's a slim possibility, do you roll that dice, Evan, or do you take the conservative strategy, come down with everybody else and risk not being able to win that stage?
And you have to question how valuable is the stage win for somebody like that number 3 of Paul Servant. Looking to put that car into victory lane, has a stage win already this season, knows how to execute stage wins in this Superspeedway Cup Series. Maybe that's the objective, because again, as we said it at the beginning, and we'll say it week in and week out, yes, if you win, you're into the playoffs, but racing for points is never a bad thing under this format. There is no, like we'll see tomorrow night in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, you got 3 drivers in the final transfer spots, but a win could take one of those away. That's not a thing. There's going to be 5 drivers in on points. So I think Monsivice kind of tying in, and I think Servant doing the same thing as he hangs up here. Tiller's won a stage. He's won the last 2, as we noted. I think these are the drivers that are very much focused on points, and I think they would rather get the stage win and then end up coming home 10th at the end of the night, then skip out on stage points, go for a win and rank out. Because again, we've seen a couple of times this season, the guy who finishes 4th or 5th at the end of the night actually has more points than the race winner, because the importance that they placed on the stages. Now, some of the drivers don't care. And if you have a win, I guess you really don't need to care about a stage win, because that's not going to benefit you as we enter the open rounds of the playoffs. You will get a benefit as you get 5 bonus points for every win in the regular season. So for the names that we've listed, Oltmans, Monsivice, Chaburko, Passini, DeMerchant, Coleman, maybe they don't care much about those individual points by points, week in, week out stages as much as they did 6 weeks ago. But I think that context is a big thing, and the 54 machine, despite the fact that he is locked into the playoffs, it continues to want to fight for everything it's got and wants to be up there for the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. But the pace car lights are off, so we're going to start stacking up the field again. So let's run you through the top 10. Paul Servant, Victor Bartlett, Harry Tiller, Brandon Monsivice, Justin Levine, Tommy Hall. Then you got a new player in Mark Jorgensen Jr., Scott Warren, Andrew Berger, and Glenn Hedrick. Something to note, Evan, the 88 and 24, very known to work together. I'm going to double check, look over. Sure enough, yep, they're in the same TeamSpeak channel. So you can bet that the 88 and the 24 are going to be working together. And also in that group, if we go to the top 20, someone else to note who's part of that group, Brandon Chaburko, Chris Passini, also a part of those guys together on that, what we'll call the Cale Yarborough team, because that's the TeamSpeak channel they're in. So the Cale Yarborough team anyway, the 88 and the 22 and the 24, the 1, throw in Wofford, throw in, who else we got? Basilius part of that team, Rod Flagg, and the returning Casey Malone. That's your biggest, probably most powerful team in this series, having a lot of former champions, a lot of race winners in that group. Definitely the biggest group and probably most dangerous out of everyone.
This restart is going to come to complete lap number 21 on the night. Again, all you see at the top of your screen is when the checkered flag is going to come out, and that is after our what was started as a 100-minute timer. It's down to an hour and 12 minutes, 72 minutes left on that clock. But this restart is going to bring us to 29 laps to go in the stage. We'll help you follow along where we are in stage 1 as it continues. But for the drivers who are trying to stretch it to make the one-stop strategy work, third time in a row, Paul Servin brings us back to it. He's got Victor Bartlett on his outside.
Yes, he does, and a very good start for the 3, though, rather. On that bottom side, they're going to get a little shimmy there. The 69, the 14 had to go left-right a little bit. Looks like they got right to the back bumper, and the car's got a little bit loose, but a great job. A 3-car breakaway on that bottom side. Now the top side going to try and respond. You see the 14 up there, or actually the 14 leading, pushing those guys away from this pack, and meanwhile Victor Bartlett, the 42, nothing going on there. And Brandon Cruz Monsiváis, the gap back to Tommy Hall is not working for the 54, and they are going nowhere fast on the top side.
42 is really out of shape that time off of the corner. Look at the huge run for Tillard on the outside. He'll make a challenge, and the 14 is sideways. Levine onto the apron. He will hang on. They'll go 2 on around him. He's got to get up above the yellow or get onto the brakes, and he will take option B. Slow it down and to keep it off for the racetrack as everybody goes on a bye. It was a smart call. It takes him out of competition, though, as the 69 Tiller makes a pass for the race lead off for the quarter. Things got really tense there between turn 4 and 1.
That is not a good situation you want to be in, Evan, where you have to get on the brakes going into 1, because if anyone's on that yellow line, they could clip you, and it could be a huge accident, a la Kevin LePage in the Nationwide Series not that many years ago. So Harry Tiller now leads this field. Justin Levine, I think he'll need a new driver's suit, but he's okay at the moment. He's back to 25th. He's back in this pack with Ron Flagg, and it looks like also, I want to say, Daniel Holloway perhaps. Yep, Ray Rittenauer, those guys. But they're way off this lead pack. And right now, finally, looks like the 42 Victor Bartlett's got some help on the outside. Monsiváis has finally gotten back with him, and the help on the outside, the 21 Hedrick and the 29 Hall.
And then 21 Machine wants to get this 4-car train going. Monsiváis is not convinced, though, that that's the strategy to go with. He'll go to the inside. The 42 is going to drop back, and I wouldn't be surprised if Monsiváis goes right back to the outside of the racetrack. We've seen him do that a couple of times. Thinking about it, and he will commit. I'm sure he would have appreciated it if Servin stayed onto the inside, because that would have put him to the lead position in that outside lane, and he's going to get forced out. The 42 of Bartlett either faked him out, and Monsiváis thought he was going to go with him. How about 3 wide, 2 rows deep in the center of the corner? Daytona's a little bit tight for this. They're making it work, though, as the 21 machine now powers up the inside, and Monsiváis going to be the big loser in that exchange.
Yeah, Monsiváis doesn't have a whole lot of friends. He finally found someone to work with him here at Spencer Preet. Those two not together in a team, but nonetheless goes up to help each other. Tommy Hall, meanwhile, drops off the back of this group to pick up the 54. Those are not teammates. They're not together in channel, but working together tonight. Oh my goodness. Huge accident there. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, and that's a massive accident. That's in the lead pack. What on earth happened?
We were talking about how you want to be up front to avoid the incidents, but it all starts with Andrew Berger. I think he tried to push the 0-1 up out of the way, and not sure what else could be said other than Travis Brown was there, and the 24 came up across his nose, and it was Travis Brown who bounced back down that took the 3, the 46, the 42, the 76, and at that point you had cars spinning every which way, and it was a mess. Servant's car, who led us to a green flag only a handful of laps ago, completely destroyed.
Yeah, Andrew Berger, one heck of a ride. They hit 3 cars there. Monsiváis just barely misses the 24, and it was on from there. I saw the 3 get caught up in it, and there were just cars everywhere. And Travis Brown's second incident for him, that's going to be night done, I believe, for the 0-1. The 3, a hard hit into the outside fence. Keep in mind, some of these guys will have backup cars. This ain't over. Richard Reagan also gets it at the last moment, but I want to ride on board with the 54 because he was about an inch or so away from hitting the landing car of 24. We're not at the airport, Evan, but it felt like it there for Monsiváis there for a moment.
He had a great view of it. The 24 went up and over and landed right in front of him and just about destroyed Monsivice's car. And he ended up going through the grass to avoid that one. Typically, that's a safe bet as you take a look on the board with that 54 machine, but he was able to drive through the grass. That car didn't spin out in the grass, I think, most importantly, because if it didn't end up on pit lane, that would have been a penalty. But he was able to safely get in and out. Now he will commit to coming down pit road. You are inside of the window to be able to make it to the end of stage 1 now as we pace at lap 27. So he, along with everybody that was involved in that accident looking for repairs, down pit road. If you got your engine destroyed in that one, Cisco, that may be the worst case scenario, because if that car came to a rest just past the start finish line, that virtual tow is going to count time to go all the way around the racetrack. You're talking about 4 or 5 minutes to get back to pit road. It's a huge difference compared to the drivers who could just limp the 200 feet to the inside of the pit lane wall there and get in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw some of those guys have to be able to limp that car back, and everyone trying to figure out where they're supposed to be. I think Glenn Hedrick's got to wait on the pace car. He's going to drop to the inside of the track here and pick up that pace car. Tommy Hall, though, I'm not sure if he knows, but he has massive damage on the rear end of that number 29. The rest of the car looks fine, but it looks like he backed it into a street lamp, Evan. That rear end is destroyed.
Looks like Tommy Hall in the 29 machine is noted is going to take over the race lead in this thing. He's deciding to not come down to the pit lane, which I think is an interesting call. I think that if you stay out now, you don't pit, you're going to have to pit again. So for the drivers who pitted, I think you're good. Maybe I could see it if somebody was wanting to come back down to the pit lane at 1 to go to top off, because it's still tight. The fuel window with the 55% fuel cell clocks in at 21 to 23 laps. We're probably going to get a restart with 21 to go if the lights go out the next time by. So pitting right away and then pacing for 4 or 5 laps may not be the greatest of strategies. I think topping off, we've seen that drivers aren't afraid to do it earlier tonight. I think that's the call, but if Hall stays out, not sure what the end game is here, unless, of course, the strategy would be, Cisco, to not worry about the stage points, pit before the stage is over, then stay out when the yellow comes out at the end of the stage. You would then cycle past those guys. Again, could be fair. We're talking about drivers who are going for points. There's drivers without wins that want to get wins. They see that as their best option to get a ticket into the playoffs. So maybe that's the end game for the 29 who leads this race but does have some back-end damage.
Yeah, that damage could be catastrophic to the 29's aero package, Evan. We're not sure how much damage that car actually has and if it'll even be able to be competitive. I think it'll do decently well, but once these guys get up to speed, the aerodynamics could be garbage, or it could be fine. I mean, we're talking about rear end damage. I mean, aerodynamically speaking, I don't think Dwayne Cooper, who's going to be starting behind the 29 when they take the restart, don't think he's going to be too thrilled trying to push a car with a bent-in rear bumper. But, I mean, in theory, if I'm going back to Aerodynamics 101, Tommy Hall should be okay.
Should. I mean, I'll take damage on the back end before damage on the front end. Front end damage going to hurt you out in clean air. It's also going to hurt those engine temperatures. But I think the concern may be a driver behind him is not going to want to get anywhere near that bumper. These Cup cars are tough enough to push as is. Rod Flag wanted to get a couple of drivers down to pit road with him in the Valvoline Chevrolet. They decide not to, but I think that the back end is going to be an issue for the 29, because if I'm the double O to Wayne Cooper, I do not want to get on that back bumper and start leaning on him, which means that Rod Flag might actually be in the best spot here.
Yeah, Flag's got a very good Pontiac Grand Prix under him. No, that's not a Chevrolet. If you read the bumper, it actually says Grand Prix, so we'll humor Rod and call it a Pontiac. But either way, he's got a good pushing partner up there with the 26, a Holloway. Also keep in mind, Flag's teammate, Mark Jorgensen Jr. in that 88, not too far back, also in play, Rodney Wofford, Brandon Jaburko. It's basically the boys reunite at the front right now for that whole group. A lot of teammates going to be able to work together. Rod Flag in a very good position right now. One of these drivers that is doing decently well on points, but he could always use that win, Evan. It always helps just to lock yourself in. You don't even have to worry about it.
Just kind of scrolling through, taking a look at where the drivers who pitted under this cycle have ended up. For those who We're down to the pit line. I think Tiller may be the lead car off of pit road. He's going to restart at 8th position. With Chaburko, Piscini, Monsivice, and friends behind. Again, kind of difficult to track who is up front where they are now because that last incident took out a good number of drivers inside of the top 10. But I would say roughly the top 7 or so deciding not to come down and pit that time, which leaves the question of being able to make it to the end of stage number 1 on fuel, for them at least, still up in the air. You can take a look as we close in on the 1 hour marker left to go tonight from Daytona. Let's race out the final 21 laps of stage number 1. Green flag flies as we go back at it and fly to the outside with a good jump.
Great jump thus far for that lead pack. Tommy Hall going back and forth. It's not working though right now. Backing up that inside line. Rod Flag going to drop down to the inside, or think about it anyway. Holloway still on the back bumper. They stack up on the top side. Hall's going to get a huge push from Dwayne Cooper in the 00, and they're going to make it work coming out of 2. The 29 has a nose in front at the moment. Dwayne Cooper doing everything he can to keep the 29 Goodwrench Chevy up front. But right now, everyone kind of stacked up on that bottom side. Now the teammates are together. They shook Harry Tiller, so now Mark Jorgensen Jr. and Rod Flag are together up on the top side with Rodney Wofford and Brandon Chaburko and Chris Piscini in tow. And yep, the teammates will go to the top side.
No surprise, they're going to try to do the dance together. It's going to be the 29 one more time by the start-finish line. Look at the 00, though. Be very careful on that bumper. And in fact, the 88 is going to drop back down inside line. That leaves Flag now out by himself. He'll fall to 4th and 5th and so on and so forth. There is no parachute out the back end of the 10 until he catches up to the one machine of Piscini, who's in 9th position. There goes the 00, though, the 57 and the 88. Everybody teaming up on Tommy Hall, who's going to go from the race lead to 3rd in the blink of an eye. And the 00 to Cooper might not even lead the lap because here comes DeMerchant.
DeMerchant up to the top side with a big push there from the 88 of Jorgensen. The 57 gonna way clear the 00 of Dwayne Cooper. Mark Jorgensen Jr. has got Rodney Wofford in tow. Harry Tiller also up there on the top side, and then 3 more teammates, the 10, the 1, the 22 are also there. And it looks like the 29, the damage finally taking effect. He's gonna tag the 69 of Harry Tiller. Tiller will hold on to it, and the 29 looking more and more like a chicane.
And nobody can agree on what's going on up front. Typically, you'll see 2 cars make a move for the race lead. Everybody will hit the reset button, and somebody else will try it again in a lap or 2. Not that case. That was 4 changes for the lead lap, or rather the lead spot in 1 lap. And now we single file things out a little bit. Rodney Wofford ends up the auto man out, who again is going to have to wait on Chris Piscini, who continues to lurk on the outside of the racetrack. He's just now getting into the top 10 with the 22 of Brandon Chaburko. That trio of cars on the outside of the racetrack know how to work this Daytona International Speedway. They'll probably be up front before we know it.
Yep, Rodney Wofford, the winningest driver here at the Daytona International Speedway. So keep an eye on that 7. He was up front earlier on. Now Harry Tiller looking to the outside. He's going to pick up Wofford. They're going to try and make a run on that outside. And I have to think that Harry Tiller right now is not with a whole lot of friends, because the 7, 1, 22, they're all on the mic to each other. 69 has the 83, the 82, and the 76 as teammates. None of them are up there right now, so Tiller all alone in a sea of enemy drivers.
And it's Daytona. You have to expect that people are going to want to work with their friends, work with their teammates. You can see the 88 of Jorgensen was not willing to commit to the outside as DeMerchant went up there. I think he was expecting DeMerchant to cross him over. He didn't commit to blocking the lane, and the 57 is going to use the outside to go to the point. Harry Tiller, the driver, giving him a push down the Daytona super stretch. He is clear. Will he stay up top to work with the 69, or does he decide to slide down? Thinking about it, a very gradual slide to the inside. Oh, and there goes DeMerchant, going to get hooked in a big accident.
And DeMerchant just gets sent like a pinball there, and all of a sudden, DeMerchant's championship hopes just may have taken another step in the wrong direction, because remember, Evan, he is not in that top 25 on points. He needs to have good runs here to make up that gap. That did not help at all, and it was help, I believe, from the 69, maybe a tag from the 88. We'll have to see overhead view up right now.
Yeah, Tiller got into the back end, but I don't know what the 57 was thinking of, and I was just getting ready to say that, okay, he's not going to commit to the bottom, and then he got turned, and it kind of caught me off guard there, as I'm sure it did both the 57 and the 69, but Cisco, he's clear. You could see it on the overhead shot. If he goes down to the double yellow line, he is not wrecked, and he is leading this race right now under green flag conditions. Instead, he doesn't commit to the bottom. He stays high. I'm not sure if he was really working with Tiller and wanted to bring him with him or what, but he stayed high, kind of moved up a little bit because he was in the middle of the two lanes, and him moving up on Tiller a little bit, Tiller going down on him to line himself up, it hooked him around, but I don't know why he didn't just go to the inside.
Well, I'm not really sure, Evan, but either way, we'll take a look from the 57 here, and you can clearly see he's got a third of a car length on Jorgensen going in the corner. I wonder if he was maybe trying to block both lanes and get help, but either way, he wasn't lined up, and oh, that's a little bit dizzying, so we're going to cut away from that. But either way, I don't get that, Evan, because we know how dangerous it is to push in these corners when you're not centered up. And that's exactly what happened to DeMerchant there as we come to complete lap 35, FYI, so 15 to go before the end of the stage. I would assume the only reason he was doing that, Evan, was to block the lines, but going into the corner, that is such a risky maneuver.
Yeah, and it's not like, I don't think he would have been working with Tiller all night, which is why I would have found it hard to believe that he was trying to stick up there and stay with him, but you can't block both lanes in the center. You could work both lanes, and that is, if somebody tries to pass you, you go up to the outside of the racetrack and block them, or if they try to pass you at the bottom, you go down to the bottom. It's like on the freeway. There's two lanes. If you don't want somebody to pass you, you could move in front of them and stop them. If you really want, you can, but you can't drive down the yellow line in the middle of the road. And I think that when you got at 50-50, I think he's lucky that Jorgensen on the inside didn't hit him at the left or quarter panel, sneaking up the bottom. And listen, this is not to say that Seth DeMerchant does not know what he is doing. The driver of the number 57 machine is an 11-time winner in this Superspeedway Cup Series. That is 4th all-time behind just the likes of, you got Jorgensen, Bakicid, Chaburko, and Wofford. So to put him 5th all-time now that the tie has technically been broken up at the top of the pile. But it is a little bit of a confusing move. Nonetheless, he's got a quick fix. It is not the end of the world for Seth DeMerchant. He won at Daytona a couple of weeks ago. He is into the playoffs. He's got a brand new race car, and he will restart in 20th position. It does, though, again, change things up at the front of the field. We were so focused, Cisco, in the opening 20-25 laps of this run on just the fuel numbers, because we were seeing accidents, but they were happening outside of the top 10 or outside of the top 15. So the drivers up front who were playing the strategy, putting the numbers into the calculator and trying to figure out the best way to walk away with those 10 bonus points were staying intact. The last two incidents, though, have been happening up front, and it's starting to become a lot more difficult to follow the strategy, and seems like these guys are basically just going to try to scrap it out to get to lap 50.
Honestly, Evan, I think the best course of action for these guys, I mean, at this point, I would think they'd be able to make it from here. So I think you throw strategy, at least if you're going for the stage one, you can throw strategy out the window. As far as the rest of the race goes, we got, what, probably going to get the green with around 50 minutes to go. So you start running the calculations, it's, you could feasibly, can they make 25 on a tank?
Well, at the start of the season, I was told 21 to 23. And I don't know if we've seen anybody even try to go 23 laps since the first of the season, because we've seen drivers more so just taking it on the conservative route. Again, what you don't want to do is pit when you have less than 1 lap of fuel to go. And that's 23 laps. You don't want to pit at lap number 23, because if a yellow comes out, you've got at least 1, if not 2 more trips around the racetrack before pit road opens under yellow. So you got guys pitting, I think, at the latest 21, 22 laps at a run, but I think we've mostly been seeing 19, 20 on a run, which is why I think that the yellow prior to this at lap number 20, or rather at lap number 30, I think it was like 27 when the yellow came out and 30 when we got back away. I think those guys can make it to the end. No doubt Jorgensen can make it. He just got his quick fix. He's going to get back out there. The yellows are obviously helping the likes of Tiller and Piscini, but I think that nothing's guaranteed at this point, especially considering, again, now it's not as simple as saying we've got guys who tried to stay out and do on one stop. We got guys who pitted earlier and are trying to pit now, because there's so many different strategies going on up front I think that almost, I think you could more so consider it everybody's on their own call.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with you. So, well, the lights are out here, so Evan will we'll run you through our top 10 as thunder continuing to strike the Vegas area. So we're hoping Evan stays with us here. Jorgensen, Tiller, Passini, Chaburko, McCarrick, Coleman, Monsivice, Servant, Malone, and Hedrick are your top 10, Evan. So a lot of guys very familiar with each other, but the wild card of the 52 is back up there. He's already had one incident today, so I know he's not in the good graces of the 94 and his teammates. So McCarrick in a very precarious scenario here, but something to note. Guess who's back up there? That's 78. He's lurking, Evan. I'm telling you, do not forget that 78 because he's due to go. I think he's due for maybe another fuel mileage one, maybe make it 2 in a row.
No, I agree with that call, and I think that for the driver, the 78 of Coleman, again, we had pointed it out when we talked about him 20 or so laps ago, that he just had enough fuel to get that win, and it wasn't even necessarily in his fuel window. If that race stayed green, Jimmy Coleman wouldn't have won it. But instead of saying, hey, I'm a lap or 2 short on fuel, I'm going to toss in the towel, he stayed out, he rolled the dice, and sometimes in racing, particularly in super speedway racing, that's what you got to do sometimes. And now the 78 doesn't care if he runs out of gas. He'll race for a championship or the playoffs in a couple of months' time. There's no reason for him not to try to take a gamble and try to get the stage win in this one. 38 laps going to be complete, 12 to go in the stage as we go back underway. The outside just non-existent. Chaburko going to go from 4th to the inside in 3rd and leave Harry Tiller on the outside, who just did not get going with the 88. He as well will dive to the inside.
Yeah, it looks like the 69 almost threw an anchor out the rear end of the car because he dropped way back. He's going to pick up the 52 of McCarrick now and immediately yellow back out, and issues with Tommy Hall. It's a big pile up. The 29, the 45, and the 83 of Evans. That's night done, I know, for Evans, and a longer night gets worse for Tommy Hall.
And it looked like it started with that 29 Hall contact between he and the 7 machine in the corner. And I mean, the 29 gets turned by the 7, but I'm not sure where else you could expect Rodney Watford to go. I don't think that the 29 was necessarily trying to get in front of him, Cisco. I think he just pinched him down a little bit too much. He pushed up the hill. They were single file into the corner. Tommy Hill went high and the 7 went to his inside. And I don't think that the 29 was trying to get in front of him because it wasn't a sharp dive to the bottom. I think he just wasn't necessarily aware maybe of how tight he was squishing the 7, but I mean, Watford, you could see it from that overhead shot specifically. He had 2 left side tires on the double yellow line. He could not go any lower, and the 29 continued to run him out of room, and Tommy Hall sideways at the middle of the racetrack. Didn't get hit by anybody else, but a 45 of Logan Benanley also went around, as well as Ramon Evans, who, as you noted, second time tonight.
And I have to wonder, the 83 had plenty of notice, and I not really sure why he was a victim in this. He had plenty of room, but either way caught the 45. So Ramon Evans' night is basically done. And unfortunate for the 83, I think both times he had issues where it just stuff happened in front of him. There was he couldn't get the car slowed down in enough time. So Evans, I think, is ready to just leave Daytona in the mirror and just head out maybe back to Talladega next week because he has had a rough night.
He's not having a good go at it this time around for the 7th race on the season. And as well, we continue to say every time there's a yellow, well, you can save a little bit more gas, be able to make it to the end. It might be a little bit of a stretch, but if those guys up front didn't have any issues and continue to stay out, who knows how far they could go on that first tank of gas. A lot of yellows making the strategy work for some. There's always a gamble. You say, I'm going to hope to get a yellow or 2. 4 or 5 may be a little bit out of the realm of possibility. I don't think I would base a fuel strategy on getting that many cautions. But maybe if you found yourself in the middle of the pack, we're expecting to maybe pit with 15 or 10 laps to go in this stage, and now that we sit with 9 laps to go at the stage, you're in a position where, hey, maybe I can just stay out. That might alter up the strategy just a little bit, but Jorgensen continues to lead under the yellow. We'll take this quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back to the Daytona International Speedway, we'll race it out to the end of the stage and hand out some bonus points. Mark Jorgensen is your leader at lap number 41 of 50 in the opening stage. You're watching the Superspeedway Cup Series on LSRTV, your home for sim racing and iRacing Live. We'll be back to Daytona in just a moment.
When I was 16 years old, I was working in a Goodyear tire store, and my boss actually built an old dirt car, street stock Monte Carlo. Went with him one night, fell in love with it. It was a hell of a race, hell of a party, and a big fight afterwards. I was like, this is it. This is it for me. It wasn't.
I want to welcome you back live to the Daytona International Speedway. Keeping an eye with things at LSRTV nonstop as the lights now just going out on top of the iRacing.com official pace car. Race start due up as we inch our way closer and closer to the end of stage number 1. You've been keeping an eye on the clock winding down at the top of your screen. We are past the halfway point. We'll hold off on taking a look at your midway race break until we get through lap number 50, hand out bonus points for the end of the stage, and then transition over to counting down that stopwatch to the end of this thing. But as it sits right now, we will approach a restart with 43 laps complete, 7 laps to go in stage number 1. Coverage of tonight's Superspeedway Cup Series event is brought to you, as always, by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim behind the wheel, on top of the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is your go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download or get the full pro version today online by logging on to joel-real-timing.com for more information. Speaking of timing and scoring, 29 cars on the lead laps this go as we get set to go back at it. Jorgensen and Piscini going to occupy the front row.
Yep, and those two are going to bring it back to the green flag teammates on the front row, and then a teammate in Brandon Chaburko starting third. But Evan, the Mustang heading to the inside of the track here on the pit road. Green flag back in the air, and they got 7 laps till the end of this stage.
Up until 2 weeks ago, we had not seen anybody win more than one stage in this Superspeedway Cup Series. Harry Tiller has won the last two. He's third. As we go off to turn number one, we started at fourth, was in front of Chaburko for a moment. He will fall now back into fourth position as he goes down to the inside of the racetrack. Does not want to commit to the outside. And there goes he and Chaburko again. They've had a spirited battles so far this season, and the 22 really doesn't want to let him stay inside. Tiller's not gonna lift though, gonna be tight to turn three. He's got him side by side.
The battle continues between the two drivers who are so different and yet so similar in their driving style, both extremely aggressive. But the problem is Chaburko's got a lot more friends on the top side because Casey Malone is up there at the moment. Teammate to that 22, another returning driver of the series. He's been around a little bit, but back in that 92 Benihana car is Malone, trying to push Chaburko to the lead. Chaburko right now in the back bumper of Jorgensen.
Side by side, now you see the 88 machine in a similar position that we saw to Merchant. Clear on the inside, but not willing to commit to the bottom. And look at the one machine of Piscini. He's actually going up off of the yellow line to side, draft the guys up to his outside. Chaburko with a crossover. What a move to the inside of the 88 machine as he will power on the inside at 3 and 4 and go to the race lead with 5 to go in the stage. How's that for a move?
Not bad at all, Brandon Chaburko. I don't know how he made it work, and he had to do some real shuffling to make it work. Now Jorgensen gonna jump to the inside with Piscini with him, and down goes Hedrick to help out as well. So Jorgensen not gonna let that last too long. He'll retake the lead from the Chaburko. The shuffling has already begun.
But now the 88 machine going to be able to get back up front. You can see the one just itching to get in between he and the 22 to go to the outside of the racetrack, but the outside line not with all that much momentum this time. As they go back down to turn number 3, as it is when we approach the end of the race, it counts as a stage as well. If a yellow were to come out, the stage would end under the caution. It would not end at the moment of yellow. It would still end when lap number 50 is complete, which can cause havoc on pit strategy under the yellows, as we saw just 2 weeks ago from Talladega, but that time by 4 to go in stage number 1, and we are single filing out amongst the top 3. Then there's a space and then a group of 4. Curious to see if those guys are all going to get together and have a 7-way battle for the race lead.
21 looking to the outside, but he's got no one with him at the moment, Evan. Now Chaburko closing in, and Hedrick's trying to say, come on, Chaburko, let's go. Chaburko said, nah, I'll just leave the outside line myself, and Glenn Hedrick going to get stuck to the inside because, car outside 22. And keep in mind, Brandon Chaburko still wants that 21 car badly because, well, that's his number that he likes to run because he's a Ryan Blaney fan. And now he's going to drop it behind and nearly hit the yellow line. He did hit the yellow line and somehow holds on to it. And Brandon Chaburko being classic Brandon Chaburko.
And we are really tight now. There's almost no separation. The 88, the 1. Now the 21 and the 22 going to go to the outside of the racetrack as we come to 2 laps to go in the stage. Jorgensen to block. Chaburko now leaves the 21 to Hedrick down the back straightaway. And the 88 again working both lines. But as you see, he's not just driving in the middle. He'll ride the bottom. He'll go up to block. Then he'll go back down to the inside of the racetrack. That's how that continues to work. And we end up back single file this time with 5 miles to go.
5 miles to go, and it's go time for the 22. He wants those stage points, and he's trying to grab them from Mark Jorgensen Jr. and Chris Piscini. He's got Malone, who Malone has been loyal to that 22 ever since we got back going on the green flag. And it looks like Chaburko's going to have a very good run. The 1 drops back to the 22. Here comes Brandon Chaburko. When does he look to the outside and maybe tries the crossover? Hedrick trying to make it a look to the outside. Not going to happen, though, and Tiller not far behind.
Out of the guys up here battling for this thing, Tiller, Piscini, the only drivers who have won a stage so far this season. They, along with Justin Levine and Paul Servant, Chris Piscini, the names who have all been able to get a stage win so far in season number 15. Nobody going to make a move yet. White flag in the air. How long do you wait to commit to the move?
I think you have to do it once you get a run coming out of turn 2, Evan. I don't think you can make moves in 3 and 4 now the way these cars are. Chaburko right on the back bumper of Chris Piscini. I think it's up to the 1 and the 88 to battle this thing out.
Final time down the back straightaway. Again, the race to the end of stage number 1. The yellow flag will come out once the 10th place driver crosses the start-finish line. Do we see a last-ditch move by Piscini and Chaburko to try to go high or low on Jorgensen? He'll lead at a quarter number 4. The one going to go to the outside. The 88 going to pinch him up and up and up. Chaburko wants to go 3 abreast to the line, and Jorgensen barely by 3/1,000ths of a second stays in front of Chris Piscini to win stage number 1.
And I don't think what Brandon Chaburko tried to do was even legal there, because he didn't go below the yellow line. He went below the yellow line, below the apron, below half the infield. So I'm pretty sure the 22 that's not going to stick for him.
Did he pass somebody? You're not allowed to pass down there. Did he make a pass? He didn't get the win, so I don't know if he passed anybody.
He might
got some grass on the tires.
I don't know. We'll get a replay of that because, well, Chaburko tried to pull it out of the bag, but
the problem is there's no white line in the grass, so we don't know where he came across the line.
Yeah.
It's showing a tie, basically, between he and Piscini for second, so that'll be a difference between 9 and 8 bonus points if they decide to penalize the 22, but our Jorgensen Jr. saw the move coming, pushed the one up high, and then made a late dive using those 18 degrees to bank it into tri-oval to just edge him out at the start-finish line.
Yeah, I think Chaburko was technically ahead, so that won't be ruled in Chaburko's favor. I'm sorry, you can't cut half the infield and hope to win a race here. So Chaburko, I'm not sure where that's going to put him, but he might be able to just hold his place in line. But either way, it's Brandon Chaburko. I don't know why I'm surprised by this, Evan, but he's Brandon Chaburko again, trying stuff out of the bag here.
The belt took himself out. You still got 30 some odd minutes of this race to go. So the unofficial stage 1 results going to be Jorgensen, Piscini, Chaburko, Malone, Hendrick, along with Tiller, Coleman, McCarrick, Holloway, and Preet inside of the top 10. The drivers are going to have an opportunity to get the bonus points, and now we're not going to be talking about laps anymore. We will join all of you by looking topside on the screen at the clock that's counting down towards 35 minutes to go, and that is how we're going to run this race out to the end, awaiting pit lane to open it for your race leaders. This time by expecting to most everybody decide to come down.
Yep, Jorgensen going to lead them all down pit road here. So pit road going to be very busy, open for business. And, 92, Casey Malone going to completely blow his pit entry, and he's going to have to reset that car. That did not work at all for Malone. He'll have to tow back to the pit stall. That could have just very well been a 5-minute tow. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it was an interesting call to not just pull it forward into the box, but he does take the quick tow. It might be short. Nonetheless, drivers are down to pit road. The 7 overshoots the box. Most drivers going to go with 2 tires and gas. It is Harry Tiller who wins the battle off of pit lane, and that may put him to the race lead. A couple of drivers staying out. We'll have to keep in mind if they are on the same cycle, but Tiller going to win the race off of the pit lane.
Yeah, he will. An excellent job by the driver of the 69. Very clean entry and exit from pit road. 3 drivers stayed out. You got the 46 of Richard Reagan Jr. Remember, he was involved in that accident, that massive accident earlier in the race. He's right now your leader. Rod Flagg is running second. Some damage, minor damage to the 10 Valvoline Pontiac. And actually, no, they're going to pass all those guys. So, or Harry Tiller's just trying to conserve fuel. I'm not really sure. But either way, Travis Brown, no, he's going to stay 4th. So Travis Brown's going to run 3rd here. Those 3 stayed out here, Evan. Alternate fuel strategy for the 10, the 01, and the 46.
So that is going to put them again in a better position in theory. And we mentioned this, we were talking about how everybody's going to be going for the stage win. Nobody says you can't stay out, decide to just not go for the stage win, and then when everybody who did battle for the stage win decides to come down pit road, then you could assume the race lead. The problem in that call is that what's the increment on fuel? Because these drivers aren't going to be able to make it to the end with the fuel they have on board. Nobody is trying to make that claim. But at the same time, if they could make it on one stop and you have to pit rather quickly, then that could hurt down the line. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see if the likes of Brown and company are going to be able to make this strategy work. But for all the stage finishes that we've had this season, got to say that's probably been the best one that we've seen so far.
Unique.
Unique is a word. Unique. Yeah, we use that a lot, it appears, here on Friday nights.
And usually concerning that 22 as well.
Yeah, 3 wide is his go-to. Whenever we see 3 wide, we say no surprise, it's Brandon Chiburko making a move. That's a little bit of unconventional 3 wide. Typically, it involves all of those cars being on the racing surface itself. But I think that Piscini kept it clean. Those guys could have easily wrecked each other to the line, and I think that if that was the battle for the race win, they would have wrecked each other to the line. But I think that was a very disciplined move by the 2 drivers who stayed on the asphalt, by being able to go side by side to the line, race each other out to a 3/1000th of a second differential, all while keeping the cars clean because they still got to race for the hardware at the end of the night.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, okay, let's see if we can do that. We'll do that. There we go. So we still are under caution here, but let's take a moment and run them through your midway race break. Why don't you think?
Yeah, passed it a couple of laps ago, but as noted, we would wait until we got through the stage, and it is a very different running order, so we'll take this opportunity to look at your iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is your one-stop shop for all things online racing, with officially sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and more. Richard Reagan Jr. is going to take over the race lead in this thing with Travis Brown in second. Then you find the drivers who came off of the pit lane with fuel. Harry Tiller, Glenn Hendrick going to roll off 3rd and 4th position, Seth the Merchant 5th, and Daniel Holloway in 6th spot. Polster Mark Jorgensen Jr. is 7th after winning the stage. Spencer Preed is 8th, Chris Massidi is 9th, and Andrew Berger P10.
Yeah, 11th is going to go currently to Justin Levine in that number 14 car. Paul Servin 12th, 13th to Jimmy Coleman, 14th Rodney Wofford, 15th to Brandon Chiburko, 16th Sean McCarrick, 17th to Dan Harrington, 18th will go to Chris Patton, 19th going to go to Kevin Spencer, and Mike Schultz rounds out your top 20.
Continue it on through. 21st is Rod Flag, 22nd away right now with the second Gary Champion, 23rd Dwayne Cooper, 24th Brandon Bonsevice, 25th with Logan McAnally, Scott Warren, and Mike Thiel rounding out the drivers on the lead lap. That's through 28th position, 29th, and 2 laps down is Casey Malone. Victor Bartlett out of this race, scored 30th.
31st going to go to Ramon Evans, Tommy Hall, Gabe Allen's going to be 33rd, 34th to Frank Basilia, James Pileski going to be 35th, Philip Radijic did not start, and neither did Dana Osborne. That rounds out your 37 cars in this field.
And it's a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com and sign up today. So, pace car going to drop down and in. Just inside of 30 minutes left to go on the clock. You do a little bit under a minute per lap, which means that we're outside of the fuel window. So depending on how this thing goes, I think we are not done with pit service on the evening. As the green flag flies and we go back at it, let's see what that 46 Reagan can do up front.
Yeah, Reagan, a very good jump on the restart with a lot of help from the 69 to Harry Tiller. Seth the Merchant, hey, he's back in this thing. Remember that accident that he had? Well, they've got the backup car out for that mellow yellow car. He's 3rd right now with a great gap. He's going to jump to the outside already, mixing things up. And Harry Tiller says, nah, I'll lead the outside line. And Richard Reagan Jr. just got left out to dry. And now Seth the Merchant going to make it 3 wide. Harry Tiller kicked to the outside.
Until on the outside of the racetrack is going to go all the way back. The 21 by, the 26 by, the 72, the 24, the 3. That is going to continue as he will drop like a rock on the outside of the racetrack. He'll find a spot at about 9th or 10th position as the battle for the race lead goes to DeMerchant at the stripe. But he was not able to clear Reagan that time by, so they go side by side to turn 1.
Yeah, turn 1 once again, and Richard Reagan Jr., an excellent job leading that line on the bottom side with Travis Brown right behind him. 2 of the newcomers to the series. Travis been running with us since towards the end of season 14 and 15. Richard Reagan Jr., one of the newcomers here this week. Excellent job in that Toyota Camry, and that's the first time we've seen a Camry out there. And up front, Jimmy Coleman's been the only one to bring that Camry out front this whole entire season here, Evan.
And a 46 trying to work both lanes. It is a tricky game to do so, but you see him make that move up, hold the 57 off, and The Merchant really getting aggressive on a bumper, trying to push him out of the way. The 46 would now go back down to the bottom. The 21 hip checked by Travis Brown. Hedrick is not happy. He's got pretty big left front damage on that car.
Yeah, that was not good at all for Glenn Hedrick, and the problem is there's only 4 cars up on the outside. Travis Brown says, I've had enough of sitting behind Reagan Jr., and he's going to jump to the outside. Meanwhile, whoop, whoop, here comes 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr., big-time freight train coming for that 88. He's got the 1 in tow and the 24 with him, as well as the 7. The teammates are back together again, and the story continues. Jorgensen up to P2. Travis Brown, meanwhile, going backwards, does not have enough help from Seth the Merchant. Reagan gonna go around, he'll save it, and he's gonna make it over the entry to the road course, and he somehow saves that car, backs it down though, will not cause an accident. He'll re-enter the track, but the 46 somehow held onto that Camry.
And he ended up inside of that green cone on the exit of pit road, so he's going to have a penalty unless race control clears it for him. You can typically go down pit road to avoid an accident. I'm not sure if getting turned sideways counts as meeting that criteria. Reagan does hang on, but he's just been completely subtracted from the battle for the race lead. Jorgensen was not very happy with him, as you could tell by the aggressive blocking to the outside and the inside of the racetrack, back and forth and back and forth. All good though for the 88 as he assumes the race lead now.
Yep, and 26 minutes left to go in this race, Evan. It's counting down. That's how much time these guys have left on the track. 3 minutes until we kind of reach the edge of that window from where these guys will be able to make it. I'm thinking if I'm the 88, the 1, the 24, the 7, I'm thinking come down as soon as possible. Make sure you get that good stop in and then just ride out the rest of this race.
And again, you're looking at about, if you can get to like 19, 18 minutes to go. If we were to stay green, you might be able to get through that time by only running 21 to 23 laps. The problem is if a yellow comes out, in conventional racing, it costs you 4 laps of time. However, in this race, because we're going by time as opposed to lap distance, caution flag takes about 2 minutes to get around every single time. You're losing 8 minutes, so instead of doing 4 less laps, you're losing 8 possible laps. That's a big difference when it comes to the strategy. So I agree, pit early, get that out of the way, and if you do see a yellow, it's not going to affect you because you're already good and you don't have to worry about saving and clutching. Nonetheless, though, we are single file up front, nowhere near spread apart. It is a freight train on the bottom lane of the racetrack, but nobody wanting to go to the outside, so maybe they're thinking pits.
I'm thinking that's probably the best option for them because, like you said, get it out of the way. And if these guys, if the yellow flies and people come down, it's even better, Evan, because you're going to get promoted back to the front of the field. It's kind of like just how a normal green flag run would happen. So we know these guys have one more stop. The question is it worth it trying to short pit it, or would you rather maybe not lose time because these guys will barely not lose a lap, but if something happens on pit road, Evan, or if they come down all alone, they're screwed.
Challenge for the race lead, and that did not work. And problems. Tiller into the outside wall. Chaburko around in caution. That happened all at once, and I thought Justin Levine was going to be the guy stuck out. He made a very aggressive move, and I have to think, Cisco, the 88 saw that lap car because he went up to the outside. Levine wanted to go 3-1, and Jorgensen said, okay, go for it. There was no third lane. The car on that third lane was going about 25 miles an hour slower, so Levine had the check way up, but that's not even where the incident came from. It was just the 69 at Tiller and the 22 at Chaburko getting together.
And the 22 basically just ran over Harry at that point, and Levine gets checked up behind the 83 of Ramon Evans, and Ramon Evans, once again, victim of circumstance. That time, oh my goodness, he has had a long day. And Chaburko, well, Chaburko was being aggressive, as he usually was. Unfortunately for Harry Tiller,
there was nowhere for 69 to go. I mean, there's a car in front of him. At that point,
he was not controlling his car. The front end of Brandon Chaburko was.
He could have been out of the gas. He could have been on the brakes. The 22 still would have been pushing him first into the 21, and then I think he kind of got turned down to the inside into the 7, bounced back back up into the outside wall. And again, these two drivers, it's something that we've been talking about all season long, but even earlier in this race when they were side by side, Cheburka was really not wanting to give Tiller that inside until he absolutely had to. So this saga continues. This time it involves two junked race cars.
Yeah, and I think I already know what the social media implications of this is going to be. These two have trash talked between each other all year, and this goes to prove I don't think it's going to get much better. And now you're dragging in Ramon Evans to this whole feud, and it's starting to just get out of hand between these two, because these two race each other harder than most other people do in the entirety of the sim. I tell you, watching between peak and everything like that, Evan, pit stops, guys coming off pit road right now, it's getting ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, pit stops, I think you're going to be good to go to the end now. We're not going to restart until inside of 20 minutes to go. Any yellow absolutely going to guarantee that you make it to the end of this thing. And it's absolutely fun to watch these guys when they did what they did 30, 45 minutes ago, and that's when they run each other really close. You rub a little bit down the straightaway, but both cars make it through the corner. You never want to see guys taking each other out, and not to insinuate that he intentionally wrecked him, but obviously that these guys have been aggressive with each other. You push somebody into a car in front of them, there's not much that person can do. Both cars end up junked, but again, it doesn't remain isolated amongst just those two, because Rodney Watford, who was on the inside of the racetrack, got tagged in that one as well. The good news for the 7 is I don't really think he got much damage from that. If he did, he decided to go with the quick repair on pit lane. Can't get a good look at the right side of that car to see if he did get the quick repair, but the 7 machine nonetheless looks like it's going to be fine, and he actually picked up spots on pit road. He'll restart this race at 4th position, so not all is bad for Rodney Watford.
It's for Rodney Watford, it's a little bit of a gift that it happened at a point where he was able to get, that damage repaired one way or another. But the problem is for Rodney Watford at this point, let's look at where you are. You got the 1 in front of you, you got the 88 in front of you. Both of those guys very, very good at this racetrack. Yeah, you're Rodney Watford. You have the most wins at Daytona out of anyone in this series, but those are teammates, and we've seen this combination of guys battle before. Mark Jorgensen Jr. isn't going to let over and let his teammate win the race to get into the playoffs here, Evan. That's not how this whole program operates. Jorgensen still needs a win. He's not even in his way in the chase, or in the playoffs rather, on points even. So Mark Jorgensen is playing for the ball game here, and he wants a win, and he's going to need a win here pretty soon.
And I'm forgetting the word for it. I learned it in school, and if it pops into my mind, I'll make sure to note it. But that's a situation where whenever you keep kind of going for the race wins, you end up finding yourself into positions like that, aggressive fight, you get into an accident, you fall out of the points, and then it forces you into a position where you again have to go for the win. And it's going to continue to go through that cycle. If you take it easy and you race for points, you tend to not wreck your race car, you get good finishes. If you want to win a race, you're going to wreck more cars, you're going to have a worse showing in the points, you're going to have to race for more wins, and it continues to kind of add on to that, and you only dig yourself deeper and deeper into a hole. But Jorgensen has never been somebody to just points race. He'll get a win, and even if he gets a win, I think most importantly, after he gets a win, if he can do it in the regular season, he will get even that much more aggressive. He rides in 3rd, got his first stage win just moments ago, so he joins the likes of Tiller, Servant, Piscini, and Levine, who have won those already so far this season. Only one driver has been able to win both a stage and a race win this year. That's Chris Piscini. Nobody has done it in the same evening yet, so we've yet to see somebody take complete maximum points. Jorgensen in a pretty good shot to take a swing at it tonight with 18 minutes left on the clock as we double him back up.
Yeah, and also to note, Evan, we keep talking about him. Jimmy Coleman, once again, to the lead of this field. And while we have a chance, we can briefly mention that orange banner is not just for show on that 78. That's the I-5 bonus. Because Jimmy Coleman won the race last week, he's looking at a little bit of a payday if he can bring it home tonight.
Yeah, top 5 finishers. This is something that goes week in and week out. The top 5 finishers from the week prior, if they're able to go on and win the race the next week, they get the I-5 bonus. It starts at $5 a week, and if nobody is to claim that $5, it'll be added on week in and week out. So sometimes you win $5. Sometimes I think the most we've ever seen was a $65 payout, which means that nobody won for like what, 13 weeks or something like that. That's happened twice in the history of this Superspeedway Cup Series. So your top 5 finishers from 2 weeks ago at Talladega, the drivers bind for the I-5 bonus. And again, you can see those orange banners up on the windshields in the 78 machine. As we noted, a winner from just 2 weeks ago in our last time out would, I think, appreciate the back-to-back wins a little bit more than the $5 bonus, but nonetheless, we'll see what he can do. He's in control. This one may not come down to fuel. We'll see if he can get the elbows up and go for it.
Yep, 2 other guys up there in contention for it. You see the orange banner on the 72 and the 24. Those guys also going for that I-5 bonus. But the iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car going to hit pit road this time. Field in control of Jimmy Coleman. There's the green flag. We're back racing here at Daytona, and a great start for the 78. 3 wide even.
Yeah, all the way to the outside of the racetrack. I think that's Champion way up top as they go back to quarter number 1, and it is. He's going to be all by himself. He wants to get in between the 24 and the 21. It's not going to happen. And Haviland Chevrolet headed the wrong direction as the inside really gets going off of the restart.
Yeah, that did not work at all for Champion. So now Jimmy Coleman leads the field. But the problem is he's got 2 mellow yellow cars back there, the 88 and the 1. Everybody's working against him here right now, Evan, but the 78 continues to lead. He is doing an excellent job up there right now.
Continues to push up front. The 88 second. The 7 runs in third, and the 57 up into the number 4 position. Seth the Merchant picking up a couple of spots off of the restart. Keep an eye on those 3rd and 4th cars and lines to try to work together. But even Tiller, who was just involved in an accident, is 5th. Brandon Chaburko is 10th. As of the last time by the start-finish line, and that's still with a healthy 28 cars deep on the lead lap. The 57's getting pushed, though. Tiller is going to force side-by-side for 3rd, as now a play for the race lead from Jorgensen.
Yeah, Jorgensen up to the lead here. He's going to get a push from the 7 Wofford. It's Mellow Yellow versus Mellow Yellow going into turn number 3. And Rodney Wofford going to back off. They're going to kind of wind up that high side and maybe try and get a run out of the corner. The 88 back side by side. The 21 is around.
Spinning out of turn number 4, the 21 machine. All kinds of out of shape. Hendrick is off. The 54 Lamont Vice is off. No caution. And as you just said, only 2 drivers involved, so we should stay green. Nobody up front going to miss a beat, though. They continue to fight for the race lead side by side with the 78 now powering back as the Merchant pushes him. Jorgensen getting help from the 7 Wofford.
They will not throw the yellow for that. That was below the racing line, was not a danger to the cars up on track, and as we mentioned, only 2 cars, so the admins weren't going to throw it. Stay green here from Daytona, and Jimmy Coleman back to the point here with the help from Seth the Merchant in that 57. Harry Tiller down on the bottom side as well with help from Spencer Preet.
Take a look on the clock. Just under 15 minutes left to go from Daytona International Speedway. We may not be in the clear when it comes to being able to get to the end of this race on a fuel if we stay green. There goes to Merchant. Wants to make a play for the race lead, and this will be perfectly timed. Jumps out from behind Coleman, gets a huge shot down the back straightaway, and it is not even close. 1 car. Now 2 cars going to get clear as the Seth the Merchant machine drops to the inside and takes over the race lead. Jorgensen doesn't want to go low, though. He'll challenge him up high as we come into side by side with the 88 top side. Going to get it, I think, at the line.
Yeah, that 88 has made that outside line work, and I flash back to the conversation we had round about, I don't know, an hour or so ago, Evan. This new build, that bottom side's going to continue to build rubber, continue to build heat. It may start to get slick out there, and it's allowing Mark Jorgensen, the cars on the outside, along with that side draft, to be able to make a substantial run up there, and it's really making that outside line move.
And you can tell that the intensity has been ramped up. There is no completed pass, drop down, and then single file out and try it again. We are in a constant gridlock up front, which is going to make it difficult for the likes of Tiller in the 69 and Preet in the 72 to make any progress. You got a fast car, you want to go somewhere, but aside from making a third lane, the track's blocked in front of you. You only have so many options, but to just push on those in front of you, hoping to clear somebody else and then make a move for it. Piscini started this race in 33rd. He's the biggest mover, running in P4 at the moment. Your pole to Mark Jorgensen Jr. leads this race. His plus minus sits at 0.
Yeah, and at this point, Evan, it's just a shakeup between this whole front pack. It goes all the way back. I'd throw Brandon Chaburko and Richard Reagan back into this. Richard Reagan, by the way, he's back up here, Evan, after taking excursion through the infield. A heck of a recovery for that 46. So the 22-46 also in this. And the closer Chaburko and Tiller get together, the more worried I'm going to start getting.
Looks like this lead pack is sitting at a total of about 9, 10. If you really want to toss the 16 to 22 in it as well, we'll go 10 cars battling for the race lead, but the group of them is about 8 or so at the moment up front. So they're sitting in a comfortable position now, but it's not like it's 4 or 5 cars. I think when you have this many, it's pretty thick up front and traffic is still dense. It's difficult to make moves. You have 2 lines and you have to choose the inside or the outside of the racetrack. Still nose to nose for the race lead, but it's almost like we're in a gridlock up front. Now that Jorgensen has cleared the 7 once more, do we see him work both lanes? Look at Tiller to the outside, right up in front of the 72.
That was fun. Harry Tiller somehow made that gap work. He didn't tag anyone, got a little bit loose, but now the outside line, new surge for those guys. Wofford at the point with help from his former DHI teammate, now just teammates in general of Chris Piscini. Those guys making it work on the top side as they come out of turn 2. Piscini, huge push to that number 7 of Wofford, and he's going to clear Mark Jorgensen Jr.
Clears him. Does he commit to the bottom of the racetrack? The 88 fights back on the inside. If there was an opening, it was short-lived. And we go side by side once again. 11 minutes left on the clock for the World Center of Racing. I have to think we're going to get really tight on fuel as Tiller, who bullied his way to the outside to get up there, now doesn't want that spot anymore. Goes back down to the bottom.
I don't know, Evan. These guys are fighting extremely hard. I think fuel's out the window at this point for these guys. Set the Merchant. Meanwhile, on that bottom side, the 2 mellow yellow cars, you can look, there's a little bit of difference between those two. And now the Merchant powers off the corner. He's making it work, but Wofford, little bit of damage on that left side, but that car still looks very good to me. Piscini giving him one heck of a push as they head into turn 3. Yet again, Wofford is there. He will not be denied.
And it's fantastic stuff to watch, but you have to think that this is not going to be able to last 10 minutes with all these cars in one piece to the end of this thing. There's just so much movement, and there goes the 22. Chaburko going to cut the nose off of the car on the inside, and he will spin through the grass all by himself up above the double yellow and caution. Oh, and big hit. Wow.
That was the 14 of Levine, the 82 of Dan Harrington also involved, and that was Brandon Chaburko coming back up onto the racing surface to trigger the yellow. Justin Levine, surprise out of nowhere, that was not what he wanted.
He'd cut off the 46. He was in the grass all by himself. We were okay up until that point, and you have to wonder, as Chaburko came back up above that double yellow line, just thinking on a strategy standpoint, Cisco, that it would benefit him if he doesn't lock that car up, lets it come above the yellow and gets a yellow. Not saying that he intentionally did so, but it's definitely a benefit to him, because if he stayed in the grass, no caution's going to come out for a single car. He got the yellow, but then a big group of cars was coming, and you would think that with the accident happening so far in advance that the 14 should have got the memo, but I don't know if we can get it on board with him or not, but Justin Levine was following the car in front of him.
Yeah.
And when that car jumps out, he just had no time to react.
No, that was, hello, there's a car on the inside. You had no idea. Goodbye for Justin Levine.
I mean, you could tell it caught him off, because on the onboard, that wheel just jerks left to right like he jumped 2 feet in the air. It scared him.
That is unfortunate for Justin Levine, and oh my goodness, what a hard hit for him. And oh wow, I have not seen that was I mean, the 52 wasn't trying to be devious with that move, but that was huge. We're also going to ride on board with Dan Harrington because he also got a dose of that as well. Surprise Brandon Chaburko. He went to the outside, but Levine and him got caught up, and then Harrington also went for a ride. So hard hits for both the 14 and the 82.
14 ended up way up in the air. It wasn't just those two drivers involved. As you noted, the 82, the 3 looked like the 18, but she'd also spun out rather late. Very close to clearing all of that was Gary Champion, who I think just spun out trying to make a sharp right-hand turn to avoid a spinning car in front of him. Got himself loose. And remnants of Danica Patrick, I think, very similar kind of an incident there at Daytona. You make a hard turn. All you're doing is trying to not hit the person in front of you. And you lock it to the right, you clear that person, but by the time you figure out that you're by him, that car has broken traction and it just slides up into the outside wall. And it was not how I was expecting it to happen with all that movement, but I was pretty much on it when I said, I don't know if we can get 10 minutes of that. It was fantastic stuff up front, but you can only do that kind of racing for so long until somebody makes a mistake. It happened. The yellow flag came out. The silver lining and the good news is it came out before 8 minutes left on the clock. So we should have an opportunity to restart this race and have a sprint to the checkers.
And it's going to be one heck of a sprint, I'll tell you, Evan, because all the players who are up fighting for this lead, they're still up there. That was for 9th and 10th on track. Reagan right now running 8th, actually. So in this scenario, Mark Jorgensen, he's still in this DeMerchant. Those guys didn't go anywhere. They're up there. The only catch to that is, well, now you got Travis Brown, Chris Patton in the 71, Dwayne Cooper, Sean McCarrick, all these guys also in it as well. So this ain't over, Evan. And if something happens to those lead guys when that white flag flies, there ain't no other flag coming out.
And the question is, when do we get to that white flag? It is not as simple as saying right now we're at 4 to go. We'll get a restart with 2 or 1 to go. It all depends on when those lights go out on top of the pace car. Every minute and 23 seconds that goes by, we get a lap closer and closer to that. Jorgensen is your leader. Again, looking for a win that would get him into the playoffs, which is especially important because at the moment he's not in the spot to transfer in. At the moment, you got the likes of DeMerchant, Wofford, Passini, Tiller inside of the top 5. Berger, Preet, Reagan, Brown, and Patton through the top 10. 57 and a 7, though, when working together all night. If they get this restart, I would expect no different than to continue that strategy.
Yeah, so, all right, Evan, he's not in the race. I saw him pop in TeamSpeak at one point and then leave. You want to break out a little bit of Haggerty's House of Horrors here?
And for the record, on Sunday, when we were having quite the issues with my microphone and I wasn't able to be here for the entirety of our event with the Drive for Suicide Prevention, I called the correct winner on that one.
But your
so
mic
I'm on a
was
streak.
broken.
I'm on a streak. I called it. I put it in chat.
Yeah,
I believe they had repeated it.
No one could verify it, Evan.
No, they said it on the. You can check the tape. Pull your Twitter. Pull your Facebook. It was there. So I'm 1 for 1 this week out of my calls. So I'm gonna let you go first. I got somebody in my mind. Who do you think's gonna end up with this one off of what I think pretty much assume? Clearly, we're gonna have at least 1 or 2 laps to go at it.
Well, you know, the way this is going to pan out here, we're not going to have a whole lot of time once this goes back green. So I got to go with the 88 just from the single fact that he's going to be leading here. The 57's going to need enough time to be able to get the motor back going and be able to go up and compete with the 88 and pass him. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I got to go with Mark Jorgensen.
I'm going to go topside with Seth the Merchant in the 57. I feel like he's got Chris Passini behind him. The Wonder Machine's done this thing once or twice, and I think that DeMerchant's going to be able to pull this thing off because we will have just enough time for him to get in front of the 88. Lights go out on top of the pace car. 4 minutes left on the clock. It takes just a little bit under 2 minutes to get around this place, so we might actually get 3 laps out of this thing. The key is we're going to have to pay attention for that white flag to come out because it may not actually come out approaching the start-finish line. Once the clock hits 0, the white will be displayed. That's all the heads up the drivers are going to get that we are on the last lap. But I think we might get 3 laps out of this thing, which, in my opinion, favors the Seth the Merchant.
Yeah, and it's going to allow him to be able to make that run happen. The question is, though, it is Mark Jurgensen we're talking about here, Evan, one of the best drivers in this series, but he's also going up against Seth the Merchant, who, oh, by the way, isn't he a two-time champ here, Evan?
He's gotten around the block. And by the way, the 88 of Jorgensen has won 13 races in this Superspeedway Cup Series. Seth the Merchant has won 11. The 57 would very much like to continue to chip away at closing in on the third-time all-time winningest driver.
And also to note, the 88 is being pushed by the winningest driver here at the Daytona International Speedway in this series, Rodney Wofford. So that's a plus for the 88, unless, of course, the 7 just bails on him. It goes with the 57, but the 7 and 88 are teammates.
So let's figure it out. We're at lap number 80, but most importantly, the clock is down to less than 3 minutes left from Daytona. Does somebody new punch their ticket into the playoffs? The drivers on the front row looking for a first win on the season. A pace car down for the final time. Do we even make it to the white flag? Green flag flies.
And a great start by both lines there. Seth the Merchant going to edge out a little bit with help from Chris Bassini, but right now it's a toss-up. But Seth the Merchant, they're going to go side by side into turn 1. It's even at the moment. Now Jorgensen on the bottom. The advantage goes to the 88.
And the key for the 57 is to not get cleared by the 7 machine. That way he can continue to lead the outside of the racetrack, and he does. A monster push by the 1 of Piscini. It'll bring him even to turn number 3, but no advantage either way. 3 drivers on the outside, 5 drivers on the inside. Get a battle for the race win as we work through 3 and 4.
88 doing an excellent job on the inside. Time is running out. 1 minute, 20 seconds when they hit the line. They got maybe 2 laps left in this thing. Mark Jorgensen, an excellent job on the bottom side. Seth the Merchant doing everything he can up on the top side.
And at this point, the 7 has no intentions of helping out the 57. If he clears to Merchant, gets to the outside, maybe they'll work together. But at the moment, side by side, there is no favors being traded either way.
There it is.
And there he goes to the outside. He clears him. Jorgensen gonna block, though. He holds the top, the 7 to the inside, and he'll spin. He takes his teammate out. Caution flag will fly, and Mark Jorgensen Jr.'s headed to the playoffs.
Well, you said they weren't going to work together, Evan, and that's precisely what happened. It all went wrong behind Mark Jorgensen Jr. And, well, Mr. Jorgensen himself, he's heading to the playoffs. Mark, you just earned yourself a spot.
First winner in series history to win a stage and the race in the same night. We take a second look at that one. We knew the 7 would go high, and I felt like if that happened, they would work together. Maybe the 7 would clear the 88 on the outside, not go down right away, and bring DeMerchant with him. But Jorgensen blocked. You expected him to block. And the 7 tried to go to the inside, and it was a very sharp dive to the inside. I'm not sure if it was a move that Wofford was trying to make or if he just got turned. But either way, maybe a combination of both. He tried to go to the inside. That car got sideways. The one thing you do not want to ever do is take out your teammate, and instead of finishing second and third, they'll end up 19th and 20th at best in this race. Watford goes for a flipping tumble down the back straightaway. Mark Jorgensen Jr. sees it all happen behind him, and I believe he gets ready to come and collect the checkers. He just has to be able to pace this thing out. Harry Tiller, another great result. Not a win, not a free ride into the championship quite yet, but a solid points night for him with P2 and a Berger in third. If that is how they cross the line, those are the drivers that we'll be chatting to in just a little bit. But for the 80 to Mark Jorgensen Jr. out in front and in control of this thing, it is going to be, we were just talking about it, career win number 14 as Jorgensen takes the checkered flag and wins at Daytona.
And just a great performance by Mark Jorgensen Jr. We know he's been wanting to get this win for a while. I'm looking forward to this post-race interview because this is going to be a whole lot of fun. So we encourage everybody to stay tuned for that because it's Mark Jorgensen. He knows how to party. So I'm sure he's going to be very excited. Harry Tiller, as you mentioned, another excellent finish for the 69, helping his efforts to point his way into the playoffs. And Andrew Berger sneaks in P3. An excellent job by the DuPont Chevrolet.
And we had said that the top of the night, hey, he's got the LSRTV colors back on the board. It has worked out so far this season for Weiss, who took home a win back in the second race of the year from Talladega. That one also just happened to be his second career win in this Superspeedway Cup Series. Maybe there's a little bit of logic to running the LSRTV logo on board. Jorgensen.
Donuts.
Might as well. Second place finish. It's a good night for him. He actually beat Jorgensen back to the start-finish line, but 88's going to go out in the grass and to the pit lane to do some celebrating. There you go. One way to make sure it doesn't passes post-race inspection, right?
Yeah, I guess. I think Scott Warren not going to be terribly happy. They're going to have to build a new car after that, Evan. I hope Jorgensen shared some of that winner's purse that he's got.
The black smoke from the engine just adds to the smoke from the burnouts as Mark Jorgensen Jr. first win on the season, and he becomes our 7th different race winner in our 7 points races this year. But again, I want to count the duels and I want to count the shootouts as well, although they were not for the playoff eligibility. We are 10 different winners in 10 different checkered flags on season 15. I'll have to kind of take a look back through the history books to see if we've ever seen a season start out this competitively, but just like that, we're halfway through the regular season, and Mark Jorgensen Jr., I think rightfully so, etches his name into the playoff grid. We'll chat with him and the rest of your top finishers in just a moment as we take one final opportunity to step aside, and when we come back to the World Center of Racing for the LSRTV post-race show, we'll be down in Gatorade Victory Lane with Mark Jorgensen Jr. He's your winner tonight in the Superspeedway Cup Series. You're watching LSRTV on iRacing Live.
When I was 16 years old, I was working in a Goodyear tire store, and my boss actually built an old dirt car, street stock Monte Carlo. Went with him one night, fell in love with it. It was a hell of a race, hell of a party, and a big fight afterwards. I was like, this is it. This is it for me. It wasn't long after that, I was driving an old 78 Camaro out of the weeds at that guy's farm. We pulled that thing out and made a race car out of it, and away we went. You know, I think a driver has more to do with the equation going back and racing dirt, whether it's a modified, a late model. You can do more with the race car. You know, the harder you drive it, a lot of times, the better it goes. You can crawl up on that wheel and feel like you made the difference at the end of the night. Asphalt car, you can't overdrive them. That was the first thing that I had to learn right off the bat is, oh my gosh, I've got to discipline myself, not overdrive this thing, and that's how you get the most out of it. Truth be told, communicating the right information to your crew and your crew chief so they can do their job and make their appropriate adjustments for you to go faster and do your job is probably 90% of the game in our world. I've always loved late models. You know, my dream was to be a late model driver driving for a living across the country like Daryl and Don do that drive for me. I mean, that was, truth be told, that was my dream, you know. I always wanted a semi. I always wanted a stacker trailer with 2 hot rods in it and let's go racing. Let's take off with your buddies and go race and chase that dream. Never in a million years did I think it would turn into a Cup Series, and I actually have an opportunity to own 2 dirt late model teams. When you think of iRacing, you don't think of a video game. It's not. It's way above and beyond any of that. You know, dirt racing changes so much. The track changes so much. Being able to capture that, to, experience all those details that surround dirt racing and make dirt racing what it is what makes iRacing so cool, because they did nail all of that. I knew when they came to our shop and scanned cars and went to the detail of getting that car right, I knew that it was going to be over the top, because it blew my mind just the work that went into making sure the car itself was legit. This sport has been around a long time. The competition can't be replaced, and that's what brings people back to the racetrack week in and week out.
We're back live from the Daytona International Speedway as Mark Jorgensen Jr. is your winner tonight in the 7th race on this Season 15 campaign, and will be trackside, no doubt, with the driver of the LSRTV iRacing Live Chevy. In a moment, first, as always, let's take a look top to bottom at your LSRTV full race results tonight from Daytona Beach. Jorgensen gets the win after starting on pole. His plus minus ends up at 0. It's a good night for him. He's also the first driver in series history to win both the opening stage and the race win in a single give night. We'll be trackside with him, as well as Harry Tiller, who comes home in second. Another great result for him, and Andrew Berger, a respectable P3. Those are the names that we'll be chatting with momentarily. Travis Brown, Richard Regan Jr., great names for some of the newcomers into this, coming home inside of the top 5 tonight. You got Chris Patton, Dwayne Cooper, Spencer Preet through 6, 7, and 8. Scott Warren comes home tonight 9th, and Jimmy Coleman in 10th. A lot of guys up inside of the top 10 getting really good finishes.
Yeah, 11th going to go to Sean McCarrott. 12th going to go to Rod Flagg. 13th he'll go to Mike Schultz. 14th to Ray Rittenauer the second. 15th to Daniel Holloway. Logan McAnally is going to finish 15th. 16th going to go to Daniel Holloway. 17th to Chris Bassini. 18th to Paul Servant. 19th Glenn Hedrick. And Seth the Merchant going to round out your top 20. It all went wrong for the 57.
Everybody else from this point on as well had a rough go at it. Multiple laps down, many of them out of this, and it includes Glenn Hedrick, who comes home in 21st, Kevin Spencer in 22nd, Brandon Cruz-Montsevice 23rd, Justin Levine 24th, and Brandon Chiburko in 25th, accompanied by Dan Harrington, Mike Thiel, Gary Champion, Gabe Allen, and Ramona Evans through 30th.
Then you got Casey Malone, Victor Bartlett, Tommy Hall, Frank Basilia III, Dana Osborne, James Pileski, and Philip Radojic rounds out your 37-car field. But, Evan, you've headed over to Victory Lane, where I sense there's going to be some celebrating going on.
He tends to get excited at Victory Lane, and if there's any win as important, not only is it the 14th on his career, but it's playoff bound for Mark Jorgensen Jr., your winner tonight from Daytona International Speedway. Mark, congratulations. First off, I appreciate that you're keeping the trend going, because this is now 10 different race winners in 10 starts this season. But for you guys, it's big because you're headed to the playoffs to fight for a title. Not only that, but I mean, you guys were on it tonight. You swept the evening. It's never happened. Qualified on pole, won the stage, won the race. Kind of made it look easy out there.
Oh yeah, I guess the 88 team is just that good. I mean, that's pretty cool. I didn't even realize that I was the first guy to win the stage and to win the race. You know, Harry ended up telling me that just now, just sitting in a team speak. But yeah, you know, kind of thinking about that and getting the pole, man, that is awesome. The trifecta, man, that's pretty cool.
He's very aware of it because he had won the last 2 stages for the last 2 races into tonight and wasn't able to finish it out. It's not an easy thing to do because we talk a lot about strategy. Some drivers like to points race, and if you're points racing, I think you really focus a lot on getting the stage points, and then you kind of see where the cards fall after that pit stop late. But for you guys, you won the stage. You only fell back about 6 or so positions, and we're up there through that whole thing. Aside from that final run to the end, and you know, you had the guys record behind you before that. I'll take you before the final restart. There was like a 10-15 minute period there after the end of the stage. There was about 10-11 cars fighting up front, and before Chiburko turned himself there down in the grass, that was crazy. 2-3 wide race, and I know that it's a new build. It looked like a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and you know, I think the draft package, I don't think anything's changed there. You know, it's still terrible, but it is what it is. You know, we got to put up with it, and you know, that just makes it more of a challenging. So to be able to win these things under those circumstances is pretty cool. But as far as the racing, man, oh my God, you know, you get there's a handful of guys in here that I love, man. You know, they are what keep me coming back every Friday night. You know, they're really good at racing, plate racing, holding the line, doing all kinds of crazy moves and being able to hold on to it. You know, it's just fun. So you get all them guys at the front of the pack. You know, it's really insane race. You know, we might look like we're going to junk every lap, but you know, every one of us knows, you know, exactly what we're doing and what the other guy's capable of, and you know how much you can lean on that guy and all that kind of good stuff. But man, this is just awesome, man. I kind of at a loss for words. Woo!
So we saw earlier in this thing, Seth the Merchant was trying to protect both lanes. It was down in turns 3 and 4. He ended up in the middle of 2 lanes and ended up junking his race car. we kind of flipped the script there late. You're the one that's trying to block both lanes. What was going through your head there on those 2 laps off of the final restart?
Oh man, coming to that last green, just making sure that I timed the start right, because my biggest fear was to be sleeping on the start and Seth just to drive right around me, let's say, get a half a car length out there in front of me and we wreck into turn 1 and, now y'all be talking to Seth being the winner. But, no, just hitting my marks, getting through the gearbox. I know I had Rodney behind me. He was pushing like all heck. I really knew what his plan was. I'm sure that he was going to, I knew he was going to pop out of line, at any minute to try to get that run to go around me. And, coming down to the end of these things, it's one of those, I really don't care at that point, who it is trying to make a move. I got to try to do everything I can to put the 88 in victory lane. So, apologize to Rodney. I blocked him, legit, but, whenever I put the block on him, I started to come back down track to kind of get back to the bottom. And I think I just kind of started bumper hooking him. His car was out of control at that point. But, man, it's awesome, man. I love this style of racing. Like I said, I love a lot of the guys in this league. But, man, to, talk to you about the first half of this race, man, run a lap caution. Hopefully we didn't put y'all to sleep up there. But I know we was having a good time in our team speak. All them caution laps, Brandon, he turned on race radio. So, we was listening to some music in team speak. Me and him was singing along in game chat, team speak. We was having a good time with it. But, man, this is awesome.
You only won the stage by 3/1000ths of a second. It was equally as much of a nail-biter towards the end of this, but you get a win. You're locked onto the playoff grid, and we are, I guess, the urgency that we were kind of trying to communicate at the beginning of the night into the broadcast was that we are halfway through the season. You are running out of time to get a win. Now that you have a win, you got half a season. So it's the other way around. What's the objective now between this and November the 3rd when the playoffs start now?
Oh, man, the first half of the season, man, I'm surprised it's taking this long just to get a win. But, my mindset was just, hey, just finish top 5, top 3. Every Friday night whenever I come over here, all I care about is top 3. I just want to come up here, talk to y'all, have a good time. If I get a win, celebrate it, have a good time with it. But, yeah, if I was going to finish top 3, top 5, I think I was definitely going to be able to point my way in. But, this right here helps me lock my position in the chase. So, from here on out, I say it every time I talk to y'all. We're going to race like hell. We're going to do whatever we can to get to the front, stay up front, block, pinch, almost turn myself if I need to try to get the win. But, yeah, hopefully we can just go on to the next race and do the trifecta over there, win the pole, the stage, and the race, and then keep on doing that. But hopefully come playoff time, I can just, up my game a little bit, man. I really like to be able to get a championship. That's one thing that's eluded me for season after season after season after season. But we'll see how it shakes out.
Tonight's win continues to solidify your spot, 3rd most all-time on the wins list. But most importantly, I think going forward, each win you get 5 extra bonus points when we head off to the playoffs. We will let you take off so the celebration can continue. Before we do, anybody else you want to say hi to?
Yeah, just a huge shout out as always to Rod Flag. I know we give them crap in game, in team speak, the whole Facebook drama. I'm sure a lot of y'all see it, but just a huge shout out for him to continuing to put this on week after week for us to come over here and have a good time, bullshit with each other, this, that, and the other. But LSRTV for the broadcast. All of y'all are amazing. I love each and every one of y'all. I'm so glad we have y'all to broadcast our league. That's so awesome. To Cisco for painting this awesome LSRTV live sim racing, Joe real timing, Windows 10 modeled after 88 paint scheme. I love it. Cisco, I love you, man. I'm glad I got this car in victory lane for you. This is awesome.
Good job, Mark.
Man, just another shout out to Brandon Chaburko, Race Radio. He kept us entertained in TeamSpeak all night long. Everybody on track that helped me, Chris Bassini, Rodney Wofford, Seth, Harry. We're all really good at this plate racing. And, God, each one of these is so hard to get. So to be able to get my 14th win, man, this is just awesome. And then a huge shout out, to all my fans that watch. I'm glad that y'all pulling for the 88 every single race. Keep watching. I love each and every one of you. And the biggest shout out yet to my cousin Michael Grabham, his son Paxton. They're watching. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much. and we're gonna drink us a lot of cold beer tonight. Woo! Yeah! Woo!
The blue looks good under the lights, but it looks especially good at the number one spot on the scoring pile. Mark Jorgensen Jr. is your winner tonight from Daytona. Mark, always a pleasure. Congratulations. Let's do this again next week.
Oh, man, I'm right there with you. I like the way you think, Kevin. Appreciate it.
He's into the playoffs as the 7th different winner in all 7 of our points races so far this season. But again, as we noted earlier, that is the 10th different winner in 10 races so far on season 15. Harry Tiller, somebody who has been making a name for himself in his debut season, comes home second tonight. And Andrew Berger came home in third. Trackside with both of them is Cisco Scaramuza, starting with the driver of the number 69 machine.
Yeah, caught up with Harry down here on pit road. And, well, Harry, it's another podium finish. So, hey, you know, more points in the bag for you. It's making it easy to point your way into these playoffs at this point, but you were so close this time. It didn't pan out, though. Talk us through it, man.
Well, I'm doing everything but not winning. I mean, I won the 2 stages in the 2 previous races, and I've just come up short again. I was gutted, really. Wish we could have gone to the old format that you used to use in NASCAR, where if the caution came out, you'd race to the line, because I'd laid off him quite a bit coming out of that wreck. I reckon I could have got a good run and possibly raced into the line. That would have been quite a good finish. But no, I think second's quite a good finish for me there, especially when you've got the likes of Mark, Rodney, and who else was up there? Chris was with them. So 3 of the best drivers working together, and I'm stuck on my own because all my teammates had all the bad luck earlier on in the race. But I made a few mistakes, like when I was up front on the outside line and I left open the middle for Seth, and I got mad at myself for that, and that just shuffled me back, and I was playing catch up. But to get second after just missing that wreck, I got a bit lucky, but well, it was more luck than judgment missing it.
Well, I was going to ask you some questions, but you beat me to them all. So, well, I'll just give you the opportunity. Give you any shout out sponsors, anyone you want to say hello to at all?
Well, I would say thanks to the 82, the 83, and the 76 for being my teammates, but they had so much bad luck early on in the race. I can't really thank them for helping me, but no, they just had bad races. Scott managed to scrape a night out of it. Just thanks for those guys for teaming up with me and having somebody to work with. I'll give a shout out to my mum and dad who are in Spain at the moment watching it over there, and to Rod just for running the league. And it's a hard decision for him to make, to get more people in to make the fields bigger or keep it as it was, but it's just difficult because the more cars you have, the more wrecks there's going to be, and that's what we had today. But no, just keep pressing on next week, and hopefully I can get to first in the points. I thought I would have had it after Chris crashed out there, but still 3 points behind, so we'll see.
We'll see, indeed. The fight continues for Harry Tiller, but another excellent finish, Harry. Congrats, and we'll see you in a week here.
Cheers.
That's Harry Tiller. I'm going to slide on over and talk to the driver in the number 24, Andrew Berger, who brings it home third. And Andrew, that all happened right in front of you for the most part. Talk us through those last couple laps, because it was getting tense there once we took that green flag.
Yeah, you could say that. I was just trying to wait and make my move if I could. It was hard drafting out there tonight. It's hard to make my moves, but yeah, as you said, I mean, the cars were in the air, and I just tried to avoid them. Seth and Rodney were in the air, and I scraped my car, I think, but made it through and ended up third tonight. So that was a good points night again for the 2014.
Well, still looking for you, at least at the moment, like there's a good chance you're going to be able to point your way into the playoffs. Is right now, is your mindset working on that consistency, or do you want to just get that win so you're safe?
I mean, I would love to get a win, of course, but as of right now, I mean, if I can't get the win, then I'm just trying to be consistent. I mean, this is my 4th top 5 in a row, so I mean, can't really beat that. Started off the season a little rough, but been catching up ever since. So I mean, right now we're looking trying to point ourselves in, but love to win one of these. I mean, we have 10 different winners this season. Maybe I'll be the 11th next week.
Yeah, it's been a season of first-time winners, Andrew, but I'll give you a chance. Sponsors, shout-outs, anyone you want to say hello to here in YouTube land.
I just want to thank Rod, as always, for continuing to put the league on. Thank you, LSRTV, for all you guys do for us and broadcasting each and every Friday night. Just shout out to all the guys working together tonight. And congrats to Mark for the win. Awesome job, man.
That's Andrew Berger. He finishes third here. Andrew, we'll see you in 1 week's time. Well, that does it, Evan. We close the book on this race at Daytona. Yet another exciting, filled with drama, filled with cars going through the infield, cars flying through the air. It was a long night. We saw plenty of racing action. Oh, by the way, we get to do this yet again in 1 week's time. And that's not even the earliest time, the first time that we're going to hit the Superspeedway, because we're doing it this weekend, too.
Yeah, we got that's the end of it for us this week on LSRTV, because we count it Sunday to Saturday. But if you go on to livesimracing.com, if you're following us on Facebook, facebook.com/LSRTV official, Twitter at LSRTV, you'll see that we got a lot of stuff coming up this week. Full Throttle Cup is back, but Sunday we go back at it again. We broadcasted this event 1 year ago, the Drive for Suicide Prevention 250, the main event. We had the shootout last Sunday, and we will be with them again in 2 weeks' time. But I want to note, and we came off of an off week in this series this past week. We don't have an off week, and I said it earlier, until November 24th is the next Friday, at which there is not going to be Superspeedway Cup Series racing on LSRTV and iRacing Live. So if you're looking for a fix, this date, this time slot is the place to be.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully our English correspondent will be back next week, and she'll be able to take the mic back from me, because it's been a long day, and I got to start working on some new ticker stuff that might be actually coming. So stay tuned to that.
And the social channels are also going to be the place to be, to keep an eye for that as we get ever closer and closer. I know we've teased a little bit of that as well on the Twitter and such, so keep an eye out, and that may be coming sooner than later. Anyways, all of that being said, that does wrap things up for us here tonight from the Daytona International Speedway. On behalf of the entire team at Live Sim Racing LLC, for Laura Lawson, DJ Lyon, everybody who makes it happen topside here, night in and night out, and for the team tonight, which was just myself, Evan Pasoko, and Francisco Scaramuzo, I want to thank you for joining us and congratulate Mark Jorgensen Jr. He is playoff bound, but this is the place to be. 10 races, 10 different winners. It'll continue next Friday night as we head back to Talladega. That race and every race of the Superspeedway Cup Series can be found right here on LSR TV, your home for sim racing. Until next time, good night.